Hey guys, you are watching your anime world. How are you all? Please support to subscribe this channel for watching new interesting stories. So in this video, we will see what if Deku was the first son of myth. Here is short summary. Izuku Midoriya, born of two normal people but after tragedy struck his life would change. Finding himself on the shores of an island once thought only as myth, his journey to discover who he is begins. But things won't be as simple as he thinks. But before we start, if you want more stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe and like this video. And if possible share this video with your friends. Now let's start the story. Inko and Hisashi Midoriya, two people who only wanted one thing in the world, to keep their newborn child safe. Hisashi is a semi-well-off person who had the privilege of working with a well-known company and was able to travel the world thanks to this job. Inko on the other hand was a foreigner from Greece of all places. It was in one of Hisashi's visits to Greece where they first met. His 6-month work assignment turned to a year, then 2, and then 3. Until finally after 3 years of dating, Hisashi decided to propose. Inko accepted to move to Japan with Hisashi. Then a year later Inko gave birth to a wonderful baby. Izuku Midoriya, now 4 months old, was currently being held by Inko as she sat in the seat of a private plane. Look at him. He's so quiet, Hisashi said as he sat across from them. Smiling, Inko nodded. He has your eyes. Fortunately, he got my looks. He's going to be one hell of a lady killer when he's older. Well, if he has your looks he better be. Hisashi laughed. Look at him, he's perfect. He sure is. Inko said as she gently rocked Izuku back and forth. This is going to be your first time visiting my homeland. You'll love it there. The people are amazing. The food is incredible, and most important of all, you'll finally get to see your grandparents. Baby Izuku cooed and laughed as he played with Inko. We should get some rest, Hisashi said. We'll be landing tomorrow evening. Nodding, Inko got up and gently put Izuku into a crib that was placed instead of 2 seats. Sweet dreams, my little emerald. The two parents sat down and slowly began to drift off to sleep. It was now 6:30 a.m. and the sun was barely starting to rise when everyone on board was shaken awake. Hisashi and Inko woke up and found that the entire plane was shaking, turbulence. Hisashi yelled as he made his way to the cockpit. Inko rushed over and grabbed Izuku who was crying. There, sweetie, we'll be fine. She then buckled herself and made sure Izuku was safe. Opening the doors to the pilots, Hisashi noticed that they were struggling to keep even the plane straight. Sir, one of them yelled. This turbulence, it shouldn't be happening. The winds were normal a second ago, and we were over the ocean with no mountain range in sight. Hisashi was barely able to keep himself upright as the plane moved. I don't care why this is happening, just get us out of here, now. The pilots quickly focused on the plane, but as they tried to move the plane a loud creaking noise was heard. Hisashi looked up to see that the hull of the plane was cracking. Get us out of this. In the back Inko held Izuku tight as she too noticed the cracks on the plane's hull appear. Hisashi, she yelled out. Hisashi ran back to his family and strapped himself into the seat. Hugging Inko, he repeated that it was all going to be alright over and over again. Soon the wall adjacent to Inko was ripped off, exposing the family to powerful suction. Thanks to them wearing seatbelts they weren't immediately pulled out, but the seats they were on weren't bolted to the ground tightly enough. Hisashi's seat was then ripped out from the floor. Inko, who had the power to pull objects close to herself, tried to help Hisashi but it was no use, the suction was too strong. Hisashi, I can't, hold on. She grunted out as she felt her powers weaken. Hisashi's power of fire breathing was no use right now. It's okay Inko, hey look at me. It's going to be okay. Just promise me you'll keep him safe. With tears in her eyes Inko nodded. I swear. With a smile on his face Hisashi nodded. I love you. Inko then felt her powers disappear due to overusing it and watched as her husband was thrown out of the plane. Hisashi. But she had no time to mourn when she too felt the seat lift. Back in the cockpit the pilots were struggling to descend the plane. With the sudden cabin decompression they needed to get to a lower altitude, but with the plane still in turbulence, it was a struggle. But by some miracle they made it, yes. 4,000 feet. One pilot yelled, but as she tried to pull up she found that they couldn't. I lost control. We are in a dive. The other pilot pressed buttons in an effort to regain control. Engines 1 and 2 are failing. We lost all electrical power. 3,000 feet. The pilot yelled. 2,000. They then looked at the window and could see the clear blue of the ocean below. 1,000. Inko saw this as well and knew what she had to do, still weak from trying to pull Hisashi in. She looked at Izuku and kissed at his forehead. Always remember, we love you. Closing her eyes, Inko wrapped herself around Izuku and with all she had left used her powers in reverse. Instead of pulling things closer, she pushed things away. But she needed to time it perfectly. Seconds later the plane hit the water and skipped across the water before tilting to one side and ripping off a wing. However, that wing was the only thing keeping them stable. With it gone, the plane tilted as it hit the water again. It did so at an angle. This time it wasn't a smooth skip, but rather the plane turned and broke apart as it hit the water. In that moment Inko used her quirk as the hull was ripped to shreds. Broken and tangled metal seemed to ricochet away from Inko and Izuku. But Inko couldn't hold it for long. Her quirk wasn't meant to do this. 30 seconds, that is all it took for the plane to be completely destroyed and for Inko's powers to die down. Now sitting on the single seat, Inko looked around to see water. Izuku. Looking down, she smiled as it seemed Izuku was fine, still crying but uninjured. Inko on the other hand wasn't so lucky. It seemed that her powers couldn't deflect at all. Grunting in pain, Inko saw that a piece of metal was sticking out from her side, narrowly hitting Izuku. Well, at least you survived. Keying him on the forehead, Inko used her quirk one final time to reach a small piece of metal that was bent like a crib. Slowly she managed to put Izuku in it. Please, anyone, find my boy. Let him live, just let him live. Using what little strength she had left, Inko pushed the piece of metal away. She watched as Izuku floated away. I love you, Izuku, don't you ever forget that. Inko then closed her eyes. Now alone, Izuku floated inside his crib for hours. With the sun now high in the sky, the heat was getting to him. He cried and cried, but there was no one around to hear him. But as luck would have it, he soon found himself washed up on a beach and stopped crying. Soon footsteps were heard walking along the sand. What is it? A female voice asked. Another piece of trash. Looks like it, but it's metal this time. Another female voice answered. I'll add it to my collection. The other voice sighed. I still don't know why you collect this kind of stuff, Cleo. Cleo was a tall, young, beautiful woman, with long black hair, a modest body, and blue-colored eyes. Ah, don't be like that, Lyra. You only think about fighting. Loosen up a bit. Lyra was a tall, beautiful woman, with a muscular frame, short brown hair, a scar that ran down her right cheek, reddish-brown colored eyes, and carried a sword on her belt. We shouldn't even be here, if the queen finds out that you sneak out like this, Lyra said, but was suddenly cut off by Cleo. Oh, forget about that already. She won't find out, not if you keep talking. Just let me grab this and we'll go. Cleo then quickly walked over to the piece of metal, but when she reached it she let out an audible gasp. What is it? Lyra asked. Reaching down and grabbing what was in the metal, she turned around, now holding baby Izuku. Look, it's a child. Lyra couldn't believe it. A baby. But how? I don't know, but as Cleo held Izuku he began to cry. The two women looked at each other in panic. What do I do? Why are you asking me? I don't know, Lyra said as she looked around for anything to keep Izuku quiet. Cleo, still panicking, had an idea. She wore a small necklace that was made of shells. Taking it off she waved it around above Izuku. Hey look. You see this? Cool, isn't it? Izuku slowly stopped crying as he looked up at the shells. Watching them move around made him laugh. See, that did the trick. So what do we do with it? Lyra asked. Let's head back to the queen. Maybe she'll know more about how it got here. Now in agreement, Cleo and Lyra walked away from the beach. Traveling atop the rocks they made it to a flatter piece of land. From there you could see a massive jungle. There was a river splitting the land in two, a mountain range, and what appeared to be a valley, and in said valley were several buildings. They were old buildings, and had an ancient feel to them. As the two arrived in the settlement, every person that lived in that city stopped what they were doing when they heard Izuku's laugh. Cleo nervously walked by them all as every single person they encountered was a woman, with no men in sight. Arriving at the biggest building, they were allowed in by 2 female guards who wore armor and wielded spears. Once inside, the 2 were taken to the main audience chamber where a woman sat atop a throne. Kneeling before this woman, they extended their respect. "My queen." Dressed in a fine silk robe, the queen stood up. "Sisters Cleo and Lyra, I heard you were down at the beach." Cleo nodded. "Yes, my queen." "Please, enough with the queen bit. There is no need for titles with me. Call me Elpis." The 2 women nodded. "Good, so tell me, what sort of things did you find this time?" "Actually, my queen, sorry, Elpis. We found not something, but someone," answered Lyra. Elpis raised an eyebrow. "Someone? As in a person?" "Yes." Cleo then stood up and revealed that she was holding Izuku in her arms. The guards in the room couldn't believe it, and neither could Elpis. "A baby?" She then walked down the steps and stopped in front of Cleo and noticed the child was curled up to her chest. "It seems to like you." Cleo laughed nervously. "Yeah, I think it's because I picked her up first." Now Elpis was even more confused. Cleo, it's not a girl. It's a boy." Cleo stopped laughing. It's a boy," Elpis explained. Removing the towel from Izuku, Cleo checked, and lo and behold, it was true. Immediately the guards in the room pointed their spears at Cleo and the child. Cleo wrapped Izuku back in the towel and held him close. "What is this?" "Cleo, you know the rules. No man is allowed on this island. Any that are found will be put to death," Elpis answered. "Now hand over the child." Looking down at Izuku, she noticed his small emerald-colored eyes. He was so innocent. His only crime was not being born a girl. "No," Cleo answered. Lyra grabbed Cleo's shoulder. "Hey, what are you doing? The queen has given you an order." Lyra answered. "I won't allow you to kill him." Cleo answered back. "He's done nothing wrong. It isn't right." "It's not about being right or wrong. It's been a law here for generations," Elpis answered. "Now hand it over or die alongside it." Sighing, Cleo nodded and was about to hand Izuku over when she suddenly tossed him into the air. Both Lyra, Elpis, and the guards looked up, but in that moment Cleo moved. Ducking underneath the spears of the guards, she managed to punch one of them in the gut, knocking them out. Grabbing their spear, she then threw it at the other with the blunt side out. Knocking her to the ground, Cleo grabbed the weapon. Using her free hand, Izuku landed once again back in her arms. Cleo was about to turn and run when a sword was pressed to her neck. "That's enough," Elpis said, holding the sword. "Or do you really think you can take me on?" Cleo narrowed her eyes. "Want to find out?" Motioning down, Elpis noticed the spear pressed to her abdomen. Elpis noticed the look in Cleo's eyes. "You are strong, maybe one of our strongest. But don't be stupid. Why risk your life for this boy? You just met him. You were the one who kept reminding us, we live to protect others." Cleo lowered the spear. "If I can't save this child, then I'm not worthy of being called an Amazon." Falling to her knees, Cleo bowed. "Kill me if you must, but let this child live." Raising her hand, Elpis called off her guards who were stationed around the throne room with arrows at the ready. "Cleo, stand and receive your punishment," ordered Elpis. Standing up, Cleo held Izuku. "Your punishment will be difficult and one that will take years. I, Elpis, Queen of the Amazons, bestow the punishment of taking care of this child. You are to forego any and all training and devote yourself to the boy and only the boy. In time you teach him our ways. Many on the island will not accept him, and you must be ready for that." "I will be ready," Cleo answered firmly. "Good, you can start by giving him a name." "We can't keep calling him boy," said Elpis, smiling. Cleo looked at the baby in her hands. His green eyes shined. "He looks like he's going to be a great leader and warrior. Iros, I'll name him Iros, first son of the Amazons." "So be it then." Elpis placed a hand on Cleo's shoulder. "Let the gods guide you and your new son." 14 years later, deep inside the forest that covered the island, the sound of a bowstring being pulled was heard. The sun shined down and onto the tip of an arrow. Following its trajectory, the target was a large deer. Taking their time to aim, the person steadied their breathing and lined up the shot. Their fingers loosened and out flew the arrow. The arrow hit true, causing the deer to fall to the ground dead. Walking over the body, the person reached down and pulled the arrow out. This will be perfect for some stew. Mom makes the best out of the entire island. Picking up the carcass with ease, the person threw it over their shoulders and began to walk out of the forest. Once out, the sun shined down on a boy, with green-colored hair and eyes. He was rather tall for his age and had plenty of muscle. He wore chest plate armor, ankle armor, along with a sword on his hip, and a bow and arrows on his back. Walking towards the city, the boy passed the women of the island. "Hey Iros, caught something good today?" one of the women asked. Iros nodded. "Sure did. I'll drop by later with the bones so you can make medicine with it." The woman smiled. "Thanks, take it easy, alright." "I always do, sister." As Iros walked through the city, he was greeted and talked with the women. In the years since he arrived, most of the women were now accustomed to a man being on the island and gradually began to accept him. But there were those who outright rejected him. As he walked, they threw glares at him. Making it to a small house near the edge town, Iros walked in. "Hey Mom, I caught something good today," he yelled out. "Maybe you can make it into stew." He received no answer. "Mom?" Walking deeper into the home, he noticed that no one was inside. Maybe she's out in the garden. Opening the door to the garden, Iros took a step outside and was immediately attacked. The attack came from above. Pulling his sword out, Iros managed to parry the blow. Now locked together, Iros noticed who it was. "You again." Pushing them back, the person flipped in the air before landing on their feet. Reaching behind their back, the person pulled out a bow and fired an arrow at Iros. Swinging his sword down, the boy sliced through it like it was nothing. A smile appeared on the person's face as they fired another arrow. Iros either blocked or broke the incoming arrows. "God, you're so annoying," Iros said as he ran at the person. Seeing him coming, the person threw down their bow and pulled out the sword. Both then swung at each other but stopped just short of their necks. "Looks like another tie," Iros said as he pointed his sword. "Yeah, I guess it is," the other person said. The two lowered their weapons. "It's good to see you, Iros." "Why do you always have to do this?" Iros asked. "Aren't we past the point of play fighting? Come on, Phyllis." Phyllis was a young woman the same age as Iros. She had long black hair, black-colored eyes, and wore armor like every Amazonian woman. She was also a close friend to Iros. They grew up together and often played and trained together. Some would say that one wouldn't be seen without the other. It's no play fighting, it's called training. Just you wait, I'll be stronger than you one day and finally break out of the long tie streak. Iros waved her off. Yeah, you always say that. Have you seen Mom?" "Oh, Sister Cleo. She went to buy some herbs," Phyllis answered. But as she answered, Phyllis smelled something. She leaned in towards Iros and quickly pulled away. "Wow, you stink. You didn't clean the blood off yourself properly, did you?" Iros smelled himself. "I'm fine." But Phyllis didn't agree. Grabbing him by the arm, she began to drag him. "Come on, we are going to the river to wash up." Iros sighed. "Fine." Making it to the river located a few minutes from Iros's home, Phyllis began to take off her clothes. She then jumped into the river. "Come on Iros, hurry up." I'm going. Don't need to rush me," said Iros as he too removed his clothes. As he took off his armor, it was shown that Iros had on a necklace of some kind. It was round with a weird rune marking. He had it since he could remember, so he thought little of it. Now naked, Iros walked into the river before submerging himself and reappearing. Running his hand through his hair, he looked over at Phyllis, who was staring. "What?" "Oh, nothing," she said. "Just wondering why your body is much different than ours." Normally any boy Iros's age would be blushing or at the very least be embarrassed, but not Iros. Growing up on an island of just women made him pretty used to being around women. Iros shrugged. "Easy, I'm a boy and you're a girl." Not much to say after that. Floating around on her back, Phyllis hummed. "Hey Iros, have you ever wondered why you're the only man on this island?" Iros splashed water on his face. "I have. I've even asked Mom about it, but she never gives me a straight answer. She tells me I'm special, and just doesn't say anything more." "Interesting, maybe they're hiding something," Phyllis said as she stood up. "Doesn't matter, I trust Mom. If she doesn't want to tell me, then it's probably for a good reason." Iros then made sure to wash himself properly. Once finished, the two then walked back to Irose's home. Walking inside, they found Cleo. Mom. Going over, Irose hugged his mother. Irose, you're back from your hunt, I see. Nice catch today. Want me to make some stew? Irose nodded. I'll get started right away then. And Phillies, will you be joining us? Sorry, no. I have to get back home. I have training in a bit, so I don't want to be late, Phillies answered. I see. Maybe next time. Careful on your way back, Cleo said as Phillies waved goodbye. Once gone, she turned to Irose. Did she try to surprise attack you again? Irose nodded. Yeah, she did. Almost had me too. Oh really? Reaching for one of the kitchen knives, Cleo grabbed it and flicked it at Irose's direction. Barely able to see it, Irose moved his head back, narrowly avoiding the knife as it got stuck in the wall. Your reflexes have improved, but they could be better. Come with me. Following, Irose was led to the backyard. Take your weapon, ordered Cleo. Nodding, Irose grabbed his sword. Good, now come. This was another part of Irose's training. Lifting his sword, he ran at his mother. It seemed to be a direct attack, but as he was a step away, he suddenly disappeared. Speed is good. Cleo then stepped aside slightly to the left. That's when Irose's blade came crashing down, but you still favor shock and awe tactics. Gripping the sword, Irose tried to slash at Cleo, but just as the blade was about to cut, she once again disappeared. The power behind Irose's swing was so hard that the wind force behind it managed to crack the wall of the house. Cleo took notice and gently landed behind him. That's the advantage of being a man, you have more upper body strength. Meaning you can swing a sword faster, stronger than we can. Stepping back, Cleo dodged every one of Irose's attacks. But that doesn't mean we don't have some advantages. As she stepped on the ground, Cleo flexed her legs and with one quick strike she managed to knock the sword into the air. Irose was pushed back, and as he stumbled back, Cleo grabbed the sword out of the air and pointed it at Irose. The tip of the blade touched his chest. Our legs are usually more powerful than men's, meaning we are flexible, nimble, and if concentrated, can be used as powerful weapons. Irose put up his hands in surrender. I yield. Lowering the blade, Cleo smiled as she stabbed the ground. Good. You still have some room for improvement, but that could be fixed with training. Not to mention that you're only 14 and almost as good as our best fighters. But still not as good as you, Mom, Irose said as he let out a sigh. Well, I was once one of the strongest here on the island, Cleo said as she sheathed the sword. Why did you stop? I heard from the others that you quit and stopped training altogether, Irose asked. Was it because of me? Cleo stayed silent for a while. Yes, you regret it, don't you? Irose asked as he lowered his head. Cleo walked over to Irose and placed a hand on his cheek. While it is true that I do miss the sword, I would gladly give it up once again if it meant being with you. So don't you ever think that it's your fault. I made the choice. You are my son, an Amazon, and I will always love you. Irose hugged Cleo. Thanks, Mom. The two embraced for a few seconds before Cleo broke the hug. Good, now come on, let's make that stew. Mom, can I ask one more question? Irose said. Cleo nodded. Anything. Why am I the only man on this island? You've told me that I'm special, but that still doesn't explain why I'm the only one. Irose asked. The question made Cleo stiffen. Is there a reason why you can't tell me? That's. Cleo thought of a way to answer him, but knew she couldn't tell him the truth. I can't tell you. Irose was surprised. She had always told him that he was special or that there was a reason, but now she straight up refused. Why not? I've seen the way some of the women here look at me. They look at me like I'm some kind of monster. Is there something wrong with me? Cleo grabbed Irose by the shoulder. There is nothing wrong with you. It's because. Cleo stopped mid-sentence. Because I'm a man, Irose said, completing what Cleo was going to say. I knew it, but why am I here? Am I just entertainment for them? He looked Cleo in the eyes. For you? Don't you dare say that. Cleo snapped back. You are my son, and that is that. We will speak of this no further. Just trust me. Now come inside. Cleo tried to pull him into the house, but Irose stood his ground. Not until you tell me the real reason. Phillies was right. You're hiding something from me. You ask for trust when you don't give me a straight answer. Why won't you tell me? Enough. Tightening her grip on Irose, Cleo managed to drag him Iroh dug his feet into the ground, but Cleo was strong enough to pull him through it, upending the ground. Iroh was losing. Let me go. Iroh yelled as he pulled against Cleo. His muscles bulged as he managed to stop Cleo. She tried to make Iroh move, but before she could, Iroh easily overpowered her and broke her grip. For all my life I've done everything you've asked me to. I have endured grueling training, the glares of those who think I am a monster. So I ask you one more time, Mother. Tell me the truth. Why am I here? Iroh asked. Please, tell me. Cleo's eyes softened. Clenching her fist, she looked away. I'm sorry, but I can't. Iroh hung his head as he heard his mother's response. I see. Turning, Iroh began to run. As he did, he picked up his sword. Cleo reached out to him. Wait, Iroh. But he was gone. Disappearing into the forest behind their home, Cleo fell to her knees. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. With Iroh running through the forest, Iroh had tears running down his face. Right now he wanted to get away, to be alone. Once out of the forest, he had to get through the city. Getting onto the rooftops, he jumped from building to building. Down below, the women of the island were returning home after a long day of training or hunting. One of the women below happened to be looking up as Iroh jumped over. Is that? Once out of the city, Iroh jumped from the top of one of the buildings and plunged several hundred feet onto the sand. Landing on his feet, Iroh ran down the beach before making it to a rocky area. Climbing over the rocks, he was then taken to a clearing. The beach was isolated and the very same one where Cleo had found him all those years ago. He didn't know this, but something about this place called him. Sitting down on the sand, Iroh looked at the ocean. Why won't she tell me the truth? Putting down his sword on the sand, Iroh laid down and closed his eyes. Soon after closing his eyes, Iroh fell asleep. It was hours later. The sun was now setting, but Iroh was still sleeping, but his sleep was interrupted when he suddenly heard footsteps on the sand. Snapping his eyes open, Iroh pointed his sword at this person. Who are you? The tip of the blade stopped inches from the person's face. Nimitslelaki, Nechpalewi. Answered the person in a language that Iroh didn't understand. As the sun fell beneath the horizon, the person came into view. It was a girl. They seemed about his age, with short brown hair, hazel-colored eyes and round blush marks on her cheeks. They also wore a suit of some kind. It was black with a pink design running down her torso. But what was most surprising was that this girl was injured. Blood dripped from 3 slash marks across her chest that ripped her suit. She also had her hand over a large wound on her side that was bleeding, along with small cuts all over her face. Tikmacholo. Sneki in and Lamantan Kata Saikan. Iroh then heard a loud growl. Looking towards the sea, he watched as 3 creatures rose from the water. 2 of them were skinny and lengthy, their skin pale, and each with different features missing or more than should be. However, the one in the middle was different. He was large, had a bird-like face, close to 7 feet tall, sharp claws, and built with large muscles. Iroh got up. What the hell is that? The girl's face was then filled with fear, and Nomu. Nomu? Whatever they are, they shouldn't be here. Walking towards them, Iroh lowered but didn't put his sword away. The girl tried to stop him, but due to her injuries the pain forced her back. Amo Makamo. Stopping in front of them, Iroh tried to speak to them. You creatures, this is the island of the Amazons, and you are not welcomed. Leave here at once. The Nomus looked at each before turning their attention to Iroh. The large one let out a roar before swinging his massive fist and hitting Iroh square in the chest. The armor Iroh was shattered. His body was thrown into the nearby cliff where he crashed, causing several large boulders to come crashing down atop of him. The injured girl watched this happen and knew that he was gone. Damn it, he wasn't part of this. Why did you kill him? The 2 smaller Nomus then appeared in front of the girl. One reached down and grabbed her by the neck and lifted her off the ground. Struggling to breathe, the girl could do nothing as the oxygen was slowly cut off. No, I can't die like this, I won't. She then reached into her belt and dug around until she found what she was looking for. Pulling her hand out, she showed the Nomus that she held a grenade. Fine, if I die so be it, but I'm taking you bastards with me. The girl was about to pull the pin when suddenly one of the Nomus was hit by a large boulder. The other looked, but as its head was turned, something came flying and taking its head clean off. The Nomu let go of the girl as its head rolled on the sand. The big Nomu stopped the rolling head with his foot before crushing it. You know, that was rather rude of you. I was trying to resolve this without needing to fight, but you just had to do that. Walking up behind the girl was Iroh's, his chest plate armor broken into pieces thanks to the hit. Unbuckling the armor, it crumbled onto the sand. You hit pretty hard, I'll give you that, but I've been hit much harder by Mom during our training sessions. His sword scraped the sand as he walked until he finally stopped in front of the girl. But now you die. Running at the Nomu, Iroh swung his sword towards the beast. But before the blade could slice, the Nomu reached out and grabbed Iroh by the head. Lifting him up, the Nomu slammed Iroh into the sand, making him drop his weapon. Lifting him back up, the Nomu then punched Iroh in the stomach. Before he could get another hit in, Iroh wrapped his legs around the beast's neck, and using his strength he managed to flip the Nomu. The Nomu crashed into the sand. It tried to get back up, but once it was on its knees, Iroh appeared behind it, putting it in a chokehold. The Nomu roared as it tried to get Iroh off, but Iroh knew he had to end this. Putting everything he had into his arms, Iroh grabbed its head and twisted. A loud snap sound was heard as Iroh snapped its neck. Nomu's body fell onto the beach lifeless. What is this thing? My punches should have been enough to hurt it, but it seemed as if it felt no pain. But as he walked back to where the girl was, Iroh could hear her speak. Amo miktok okay. Mit's behind. Not being able to understand her, Iroh thought nothing of it, but that's when he heard a roar from behind him. Iroh snapped his head back just in time to see the Nomu standing back up. With its fist raised, the Nomu punched Iroh across the face to force the young Amazon to his knee. On the ground, Iroh could feel something warm run down his lip. He wiped it off only to see that it was blood. Oh, now that's more like it. Jumping up, Iroh punched the beast underneath its chin. It roared as its head snapped back, but regaining its composure, it used its claws to slash down at Iroh. Its claws scraped Iroh's arm just enough to draw blood. Iroh countered by kicking the knee in and twisting its arm back, snapping it. But nothing seemed to be working. No matter how much Iroh would hit it, the Nomu wouldn't stay down. There's only one thing to do. I need to cut its head off. Seeing his sword still on the sand, he tried running for it, but the Nomu saw what he was trying to do and kicked him away. With the girl, she watched as Iroh went toe to toe with the Nomu. Incredible, he's fighting that thing one-on-one. Not even Bakugo could do that. But he's still in trouble. He can't finish it off. He needs to sever the head. The girl then noticed that Iroh was trying to get to his sword. He must have figured it out too. She looked around and had an idea. Back with Iroh, his desperate attempts to get his sword weren't getting him anywhere. He needed a small window of opportunity to get his sword and kill the beast for good. As he held back its claws, he suddenly saw something he could barely believe. What the? Several large pieces of the broken cliffside floating in the air. He then looked to the cliffs and noticed that it was the girl. Her hands were pressed together with all but 2 fingers. Ikiauk in Ohtli, she yelled out. Iroh didn't need to understand her language to know what that meant. Throwing the Nomu's claws back, he turned around and kicked the Nomu in the abdomen. The Nomu slid across the sand a few meters before stopping at the shoreline. Touching the last of her fingers together, the girl caused the boulders to come crashing down atop the Nomu. The Nomu was buried underneath several tons of stone and rock. Iroh was surprised. Just who was this girl that she was able to lift and drop all those massive boulders? But Iroh didn't have time to think when he saw the Nomu appear once again. However, this was just what he needed to finally kill this thing. Rushing in, Iroh picked up his sword from the sand, and with one quick and precise swing he managed to slice through the Nomu's neck. It took a moment, but its head slowly fell off. Iroh breathed a sigh of relief. It's finally dead. The girl then limped forward, smiling. Otikchiua Mitsuya, Nelpa Kiyomikti, but the girl couldn't hold on anymore. As she took a step, her body went limp and she fell onto the sand. Iroh quickly rushed over. He checked her breathing and pulse, and noticed the blood coming from her side. Her injuries are worse. Her heart rate is slowing. She needs help. Picking her up, Iroh looked up at the cliff and began to climb. Making it to the top, he took off in a full sprint back to the city. Once at the edge of the city, he came face to face with Cleo, Iroh. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Iroh asked, surprised to see his mom so far away from home. Cleo then noticed the bloodstains. "You're hurt." Iroh shook his head. "It's not mine, but forget about me. We need to help her." Cleo looked at what Iroh's, or rather who Iroh's, was carrying, a girl. But she's not one of us, how did she? We don't have time for this. She's dying. Walking past his mother, Iroh's quickly got the girl to a medical facility. As Cleo watched Iroh's leave, her worry began to grow. That girl, she's similar to Iroh's. 5 minutes earlier, Cleo's home. Cleo had gone inside once Iroh's had left. She wanted to go find him, but she knew he didn't want to see her right now. She was currently sitting down at the table, alone, waiting for him to come back. All of a sudden there was a knock on the door. Cleo got up quickly, thinking that it was Iroh's. Iroh's, she yelled out, opening the door. But it wasn't Iroh's, it was Elpis, Your Majesty. Falling to her knees, Cleo bowed. Cleo, my friend, please get up, Elpis said, helping her friend up. It's been so long since we've seen each other. May I come in? Nodding, Cleo let the queen in. They went to sit down at the table. Elpis, why are you here? Surely you're not here just to say hi. I saw Iroh's, Elpis answered. Cleo's eyes widened. Where? Is he okay? Elpis noticed panic in her voice. You asking me that tells me that you two fought. What happened? Cleo looked away. I messed up. He was asking me about why he was the only male on the island. I told him what I always told him, but this time he insisted on an answer. When I refused, he got angry. He begged me to tell him. But I couldn't. He thinks I raised him just to amuse myself. That I don't actually love him or think of him as my son. I see. Do you think it's time to tell him? Elpis asked. I know we swore to keep it secret, but he should know. About who he really is and what happened when he was a child. He has to know what you did. Cleo shook her head. I can't, I won't. He will blame himself. Then what? If you leave things how they are now, you may lose him forever, said Elpis. Do you want that? I risk doing so by telling him. Cleo clenched her fist. Is this what you meant by punishment all those years ago, Elpis? Is this my punishment? Elpis reached out and hugged Cleo. It's called motherhood. You have to be able to make the right choice for your son. But as the two talked, one of Elpis's guards came bursting through the door. Your Majesty, you need to see this. Cleo and Elpis quickly went outside, where they saw it. Several massive boulders floating high above the ground. What? How is that possible? Questioned Elpis. I wouldn't worry about that. I would be worried about who is doing that, said Cleo. Just then the two watched as the boulders fell. The ground rumbled underneath them for a second thanks to the impacts. Cleo then noticed something. That place. It's, oh no, Iroh's. Taking off, Cleo ran towards the direction of the falling boulders. Elpis looked at her guards. Follow her to the site. Deploy the city guard. Someone is on our island who isn't supposed to be here. Standing in the door, Iroh's watched as the healers worked on the girl. Cutting her suit, they inspected her injuries. Deep cuts across her chest and abdomen. We need to stop the bleeding. The girl suddenly spit out blood. Damn it. Her lung just collapsed. Where is the herb? The healer asked. They are bringing it. But we need to stabilize her first, yelled another healer. Iroh's couldn't help but worry. He took a step forward, but before he could ask anything, a hand touched his shoulder. He turned to find Phyllis. Iroh's, the queen is calling for you. That was surprising. I assume she wants to know what happened, but I can't just leave her. She will be fine. The herb is already being brought over. Once she is stable, you can come back and see her. Okay. Iroh's nodded. Good, let's go. Phyllis then escorted Iroh's to the palace. Once he crossed the doors to the throne room, Phyllis disappeared. Iroh's took a few steps in, then fell to his knees. You called, Your Majesty? Sitting on her throne, Elpis nodded. I did. You are permitted to stand. Iroh's obeyed and stood up. He scanned the room and found his mother standing beside the queen. Is this about what happened on the beach? Iroh's asked. Elpis stood up. Correct. We know that you rescued that girl, the outsider. We also know that you fought and killed these beasts. Waving her hand, 2 Amazon warriors brought in the corpses of the 3 Nomus. You killed these 2 with a single strike. Well done. But the big one, you struggled. Iroh's walked over to the Nomu. Yes, it shattered my chestplate armor with a single strike and managed to hit me hard enough to draw blood. It also seemed to be able to take my hits with ease. It was as if the impact was being absorbed. I see. To be able to take your hits and still stand is a feat in and of itself, Elpis said. But it also seemed to heal from fatal blows. While I was fighting it, I managed to snap its neck, but seconds later it stood back up like nothing ever happened. Iroh explained. Whatever this thing is, it's not natural. It displayed no emotion, no pain, no nothing. All it did was try and kill me and the girl. Speaking of the girl, what can you tell us? Elpis asked. She spoke in a strange tongue, one I've never heard, so I didn't understand what she was saying, but I did figure out the name of these things. They're called Nomu. Iroh explained. Another thing, the girl, she possesses a strange power. Those boulders you saw floating in the sky, she did that. I wasn't able to see how, but to release them she touched the tips of her fingers together. Elpis hummed, and what about her personality? What did you read from her voice, actions, and manner of movement? Iroh thought about it, strong-willed. There was a moment where she thought it was over, and instead of allowing herself to be killed, she tried to take these things down with her. It was quite impressive if you ask me. Elpis then noticed Iroh's demeanor change. Is there something you wish to ask? Iroh nodded, then asked. The girl, she looks similar to me. Cleo flinched when she heard Iroh say that. Her facial structure seems similar to my own. But I was born here, how is that possible? The queen waved her hand, commanding all of the guards to leave. Several Amazon warriors took the corpses of the Nomus away. Iroh was surprised. What's going on? Elpis then walked over to Iroh. There's a reason why she seems familiar to you, and I think it's time you knew the truth of who you are. The truth? What truth? Iroh asked, now even more confused. I'm sorry, Iroh, but you are not from this island. Iroh was stunned. Cleo found you 14 years ago washed up on our shore. We know not where you come from, but only that you came from the outside world. Iroh took a step back. No, that's not true. I was born here. Mom always said so, right Mom? Cleo grabbed her arm. What she's saying is the truth. It is forbidden for any man, even a child, to step foot on this island. Any man who is caught on the island is immediately put to death. Elpis explained. However, the hands of fate had other things planned for you. Cleo begged for your life, and I granted it. As punishment for her actions, she was forced to give up her sword and devote herself to your upbringing. And no, this doesn't make any sense. I trained and fought along with my sisters. If I was from the outside world, then I would have been weak. I'm an Amazon, Iroh said, his face filled with sorrow. Elpis took a deep breath. While that would be the case for most, your case is different. It happened when you were 2 years old. Cleo and I were out deep in the forest when we were attacked by a pack of wolves. We managed to fend them off, but in the process you fell from Cleo's arms and hit your head on the root of the tree, cracking your head open. We rushed you to our healers, but all of our medicine is tailored to women's biology, not men's. So nothing we did was working. That is, until Cleo had an idea. To use her blood to heal you. Amazons, as you know, can heal from just about anything, so if you had our blood running through you, the injury would heal. But there's a catch. Elpis then looked at Iroh. Once Cleo gave you her blood, she stopped being an Amazon. Her powers were transferred to you. That's why you were able to keep up with us. Then everything about me is a lie. Iroh looked at his hands. Why did you keep this from me? Cleo then walked over to Iroh. Since you were already so different from everyone else on the island, we didn't want to make you feel excluded. I told you we're born here to help you, to make you one of us. Cleo tried to reach out for her son, but Iroh backed away. You should have told me. The looks I get from some of the women, the reason why I was excluded from every year's champion games, it all makes sense now. Iroh then looked at his mother. I trusted you. He then turned his back on his mother. If you need me, I'll be with the girl making sure she's fine. With that, Iroh bowed to the queen before leaving. Cleo watched him leave. He hates me now, I lost him. Elpis reached out and grabbed Cleo's hand. He just needs time, Cleo, he'll come around. In the meantime, go home, rest, that's the queen's order. With nothing more to do, Cleo nodded and bowed before leaving the chamber. As she left the queen's side, so, was everything he said true? Looking up into the shadow of the room, Phillies appeared. Yes, he spoke no lies when recanting the events. I watched it happen. And he didn't see or sense you? Elpis asked. No, if he did he would have said something. Phillies then jumped down. Besides, what kind of spy would I be if I let my target see me? Elpis nodded. Continue to monitor Iroh's. Now that he knows the truth, there's no telling what he will do. Phillies bowed. Your wish is my command. The next day. During the night, the healers of the island managed to stabilize and close up the mystery girl's wounds with the help of the herb. And all throughout the night Iroh stayed by her side and didn't return home. He wasn't ready to face his mother, not now at least. It was now the early hours of the morning and the sun rose above the island, shining light into the room the girl was resting in. As the sun hit her face, it woke her up. Snapping her eyes open, the girl sat up. No, she yelled out. The girl groaned in pain as she still wasn't fully healed yet. Damn it, that hurts. Grabbing her side, she noticed that there were bandage wraps around her arms, abdomen, and chest. My wounds, they still hurt, but they are almost healed. How? Tana Connell, said a voice coming from the doorway. The girl looked up to see Iroh standing there. Oh, it's you. Iroh then walked over to the girl and gently laid her back down. Sorry, I guess I should be taking it easy. Iroh smiled. So where am I? Cuba? The girl asked. But Iroh didn't understand her. To him she spoke a foreign language. Right, you can't understand me. But thank you, you saved me last night. If it wasn't for you I would have died. Iroh then helped the girl sit up and grabbed a cup of water. She took a sip and bowed slightly. Thanks. Putting the cup down, Iroh spoke. Bix Lagaste la Pete Luumo. Again she didn't understand him. I've never heard this language before. This is frustrating. Guess we should start from the beginning. My name is Ochako Uraraka, the girl said slowly, hoping the boy would understand. It took a second, but Iroh pointed at the girl. You Uraraka? Uraraka nodded. Yes, that's it, that's my name. Iroh then pointed at himself. Iroh. Uraraka pointed at the boy. Iroh? Is that your name? Iroh nodded. Iroh. Huh, that sounds European kind of. Anyway, thank you Iroh, you saved me last night. But I need to get off of this island, I need to go home. Iroh struggled to get words out. You Uraraka, home? Yes, home. I need to get home, Uraraka said, trying to get out of bed. Iroh tried stopping her, but she wouldn't stay laying down. I'm sorry, but I can't stay here, I have to leave. Uraraka got out of bed. Iroh then got an idea. Koatan Weetel, Zan Yu Reina Biak Wantik. Iroh motioned her to follow her before grabbing a robe and gave it to Uraraka. Huh? Do you want me to follow you? A robe? What for? Uraraka questioned, but that's when she looked down at herself and noticed she was very much naked. Only the bandage wraps provided very little cover. Quickly covering herself, Uraraka glared at Iroh. Her face was bright red and she was beyond embarrassed. You jerk. With one quick motion, Uraraka slapped Iroh across the face. After taking the robe and putting it on, Uraraka followed Iroh down into the street below. Iroh's cheek was still a bit red, but he was more confused than anything else. Why did she hit me? Was it because I saw her naked? As Uraraka followed Iroh, she got a good look around the city. Whoa. This place is beautiful, I've never seen buildings like this. And the people, they're so tall. But that's when Uraraka began to notice something, or rather lack thereof. Where are all the men? Boys? There are girls but no boys, none except for him. After following Iroh for a few minutes, the two of them came upon the steps to the palace. Uraraka looked up at the building in awe. Wow, it's amazing. This has to be some sort of government building. Hey Iroh, what is this place? But Uraraka got no answer. She looked back down only to find Iroh talking to the guards. Quickly walking over, Uraraka stood beside Iroh as he spoke to the guards. After a while, the two guards who were holding spears allowed them to pass. As they passed through the gates, Uraraka bowed slightly as the guards smiled at her. Once inside, the two made it to the throne room. Once inside, Iroh took a knee. Uraraka looked around confused. Huh? What's going on? Iroh tugged on Uraraka's robe, signaling her to do the same, but before she could, a voice was heard. Ma, teach Juntul in Kajal. Ma, Kabe inclinare. Uraraka watched as a tall, beautiful woman came walking down the steps. Wow, she's beautiful, she even gives Midnight a run for her money. Iroh then spoke, in Reina, Bay jail u Pajtal a will edge, ku u Utsil yoasil. Letty, Yalik Ukalabiye, Uraraka. Ah, Uraraka, la trays taela, boix supongo ka sibultik tea, shane la potion? The queen seemed to ask Iroh a question, since he nodded. The queen then snapped her fingers. A second later a woman wearing armor brought Uraraka a small cup. Taking it she looked confused. It didn't look like water, it had a greenish color to it. Is this water? But it's green. Standing up, Iroh did the motions of sipping water. Again Uraraka looked at the strange-looking water. You did save me. Ah, screw it. Closing her eyes, Uraraka chugged the glass. And it had to be the most sour-tasting water she has ever tasted. Her face scrunched up, causing Iroh and the queen to chuckle. Oh god, what was that? Ah, good. It seems it has worked, said Queen Elpis in a way that Uraraka could understand her. Uraraka snapped her head up. Huh? Wait, I just understood you. How is that possible? We gave you a potion, Elpis replied. Any who drink will have what they don't understand made clear, including languages. That's incredible. I never heard of any drink doing that. Thank you. Sorry I never caught your name, said Uraraka, slightly embarrassed. My name is Queen Elpis. I am the 28th ruler of this island, Elpis replied. Uraraka's eyes widened. I'm so sorry. She quickly fell to her knees. Forgive my rudeness. Elpis laughed. Do not worry about it. It's as I said before. You are not of this island, so I don't expect you to bow to me. Please, call me Elpis. Getting up, Uraraka nodded. Right. Well, Elpis, where exactly am I? You mentioned an island before, but you spoke a language that I never heard of. You are on the island of the Amazons. As for its location, that's a secret, Elpis explained. Wait, Amazons? As in the mythical women of legend? As in, the warrior women of Greek mythology? Uraraka asked, dumbfounded. Well, I wouldn't call us mythical, we are real. Have been for centuries, Elpis said. But we are warriors. This is amazing. To think the island of the Amazons is real, Uraraka said, still shocked by the news. Yes, while I'm sure you are shocked by this news, I would like to ask some questions, Elpis said. How did you get here? This island is meant to be hidden from everyone in the outside world. Uraraka thought back to what happened that day. Chance. I was on a flight going to the USA from Turkey on a mission to recruit people for our cause. But we were chased down by the Nomus, the ones he killed. They managed to get inside and attack us from within the plane. During the ride I was injured. At the same time the hero from Turkey ignited an explosion, which caused the plane to crash into the sea. I was knocked out for a bit because after I woke up I found myself alone floating on a broken piece of metal. I knew that the Nomus would come looking for survivors, so I swam. Unfortunately they caught up to me, but then I saw it. I saw this island. I swam to it as fast as I could and somehow made it without losing consciousness. Elpis raised an eyebrow. Cause? What cause? I come from a nation called Japan. We are currently under attack by a villain named All for One. He has the power to steal other people's quirks and use them as his own. Quirks are powers that we are born with and which manifest when we are young. They range from throwing fire to becoming completely invisible. I have the power to take anything I touch with all 5 fingers weightless. AFO wants to take as many quirks as he can to make himself invincible and take over the world. Uraraka clenched her fist. He's killed countless, destroyed cities, ruined families, and all for his own greed. The Nomus, they are actually people he has turned into those beasts. He won't stop, but we are fighting back. My school, UA, is always fighting, always trying to find ways to take him down. So that's why I'm asking you, Your Majesty, please, send me home so I can go and help my friends. Queen Elpis and Iroh were surprised. How long has this war been going on? Not long, it started when All for One attacked UA, Uraraka explained. I see, very well, we will send you home if it is truly your wish. Uraraka smiled. However, you may also choose to stay here and be with your sisters. You are a woman, and as such you are welcome here. You will suffer no longer if you stay. Thank you for the kind offer, but I will decline. I need to get back to where I belong, said Uraraka. It is your choice, but you will go until your wounds are healed. It should just be until the next morning. Can you wait that long? Elpis asked. Uraraka nodded. If I go back how I am now, then I won't be of much use. Then rest you shall. Until then, feel free to explore the island. Iroh's here will serve as your guide, Elpis said, pointing at Iroh's. Iroh's bowed, as you command. He then looked at Uraraka, shall we? But Uraraka just stared at him for a few seconds. You're Iroh's, right? You look Japanese. Also, I have to ask, why are you the only man on an island meant only for women? Iroh's rubbed the back of his head. It's a long story, and one I recently found out myself. That's when Queen Elpis cleared her throat. You two can go. Do try to stay out of trouble. Oh, and Iroh's, your mother, she worries. Iroh's face turned to one of sorrow. Thank you, my queen, I'll leave now. Iroh's then walked towards the doors to the palace. Uraraka quickly followed. Queen Elpis sighed as the two left the throne room. All for one, he could be a problem. Back with Iroh's and Uraraka, the two made it back onto the city streets. Iroh's was quiet and Uraraka took notice. Hey, Iroh's, are you alright? Iroh's took a deep breath before exhaling. Yeah, I'm fine, forget about it. Come on, let me show you around. The two went around the island. Iroh's showed off everything that was great about it. He showed off the library, the theater, the forest, the arena, and especially the training grounds. Uraraka even got to taste Amazonian food which she enjoyed. Several hours had gone by and the two now found themselves standing on the edge of a cliff watching the sun fall. This place, it really is paradise, Uraraka said, nearing the cliff's edge. It sure is, Iroh said as he watched her. Uraraka, how is the outside world? Uraraka thought about it. Flawed, but beautiful. There are many things wrong with the outside world, but as with many things there is still beauty. It's home, and I can't think of another place I want to be. Helping my friends, it's what I want to do. Iroh's eyes softened. Home, huh? Uraraka turned around. You know, ever since I arrived here I've got this strange feeling about you. The women of this island are nice enough but hard to talk to. But with you, it's different. It feels familiar in a sense. Now I know why you are Japanese. We're from the same homeland. So how did you get here? Iroh's looked at his hands. I washed up here when I was just a baby. They say I was in an accident of some kind. A woman named Cleo took me in, raised me. She was like a mother to me. As you know, men aren't allowed on this island, but yet here I am. I was led to believe that I was born here, raised to be an Amazon warrior. I trained and trained, but in the end I was lied to. Now I don't know what to believe, and I'm left with more questions than answers. I see, you are in paradise, but living in your own personal hell, said Uraraka. Look, I get that you have questions, and I won't pretend like I know what you're going through. But I can tell you that whoever raised you loves you. Iroh's looked up. I'm not even sure of that anymore. She could be lying to me. Yet she kept raising you, Uraraka said, regardless of what you think she loves you. But I don't belong here. This place wasn't meant for me, Iroh's explained. You may not belong here, but there is one person that loves and cares for you here. Uraraka smiled, and that's all you need to belong. Staying silent for a few moments, Iroh's nodded. Come with me. There's one more place I want to take you. Agreeing, Uraraka followed Iroh's to a small house near the edge of town. He stood outside the home looking at it for quite a while before walking up to the door and opening it. Mom, I'm home, he announced as he walked in. Inside, Cleo was sitting at the edge of her bed. What if he never comes back? I know the queen said to give him time, but what if he hates me more by then? Tears then ran down Cleo's face. I should have told him the truth sooner. I'm so sorry, Iroh's. As she wept, Iroh's voice echoed throughout the home. Cleo stood up. Iroh's? Getting up quickly, she ran outside and into the living room. From there she stopped and looked at the entrance to find Iroh's standing there. A silence filled the home as the two didn't know what to do. But that's when Uraraka pushed Iroh's from behind. Go on, she's waiting. Iroh's nodded as he looked at his mother. Hi. Tears fell to the floor as she ran at Iroh's. Reaching out, she hugged him tight as she cried, Iroh's. Iroh's hugged Cleo back. I'm back, Mom. After a few minutes had gone by, the two calmed down and Iroh's introduced Uraraka. Cleo was more than happy to invite Uraraka into her home. The three then shared a meal together. Cleo even invited her to stay the night. Uraraka tried to refuse, but Cleo was relentless. Ultimately she agreed. As the late hours of the night grew, they fell asleep. Well, all but Iroh's, who found himself standing in the backyard looking up at the stars. Having trouble sleeping? A voice asked. Iroh's turned to find Uraraka. A bit, you? With all that's happened I can't sleep. Uraraka said as she walked towards Iroh's. Looking up to the sky she was surprised at how many stars there were. Wow, it really is beautiful, is it? It sure is. Iroh said. Uraraka, can I ask you something? Uraraka nodded. Of course. Why didn't you ask for help? Asked Iroh. After you found out we were Amazons you didn't even ask. Why? We can fight. Because I don't want anyone else to suffer. This island, these people, your people, are not a part of this fight. It's our fight, the outside world's fight. Uraraka explained. So if I offered my help, would you take it? Iroh asked. Uraraka shook her head. No, I see. Then at least take this. Iroh turned and gave Uraraka a sword. It's a sword I've had since I was little. Old but sturdy, she will help you during your fight. Uraraka grabbed the sword, and wielded it. Wow, I've never held a blade like this before. Thank you, I will cherish it. Come on, you should rest. Your injuries are almost healed and tomorrow you leave back to your homeland, Iroh said. Yeah, I guess I should. What about you? Asked Uraraka. I'll stay here for a bit longer, Iroh said. Uraraka nodded and went back inside. As Iroh stared into the sky he suddenly felt that someone was watching him. He turned his gaze to the direction of the trees but didn't notice anyone. Huh, did I imagine it? The next morning waking up early Cleo prepared breakfast for the three of them. They sat down and ate but once they finished there was a knock at the door. It was Philly's, Iroh's. She yelled out jumping to his arms. Uraraka was surprised. Iroh was annoyed. It's too early in the morning for this Philly's, he said, pushing her away. Are you embarrassed? Philly's said teasing. She then looked over his shoulder. Oh, you must be the new girl. I saw you yesterday walking around with Iroh. Why yeah, that's me. Uraraka said. Iroh, who is she? Finally able to push Philly's away, Iroh introduced her. This is Philly's, one of the Queen's guards in training and my annoying childhood friend. What? How could you? Philly's said in shock. I thought I was your lover. Iroh raised an eyebrow. Huh? You my lover? You're the one who came up with that idea when we were 5. He then turned to Uraraka. Sorry about her. Philly's can be a bit much sometimes but she means well. Uraraka laughed. Don't worry about it. I have a friend who's like that as well. I'm also kind of glad she isn't your girlfriend. Uraraka said that last part silently. Alright you two, we should head out. Cleo said. Philly's, will you be escorting us? Philly's nodded. Sure am, come on, the portal is almost ready. Leaving the house Philly's escorted the three to the palace, where they found the queen standing beside a massive mirror. Ah, you're here, just in time. The mirror is ready, all we need is Uraraka here to activate it. What is that? Asked Uraraka. It's a portal, it connects our world to the outside. It was crafted by our artisans and enhanced with magic. Elpis explained. All you need to do is touch the mirror and think of your destination. Uraraka walked up to the mirror. Wow, that's amazing. Some of us have teleportation quirks but nothing like this. Whenever you're ready, Elpis said as she backed away. Reaching out, Uraraka touched the mirror, closing her eyes and began to picture her destination. The mirror then began to swirl before turning into the image of a large building with the words UA on it. The gates looked tattered, the ground was full of holes, and the area around it was abandoned. Is that where you want to go? Asked Iroh. Uraraka nodded. Yes, it's where my friends are. This is actually my school, or what's left of it. We use it as a base and house those in need. A refugee camp. Cleo said, shocked at the state of the outside world. Is this how it is all across your homeland? Elpis asked. Sadly Uraraka nodded. For the most part. The areas that aren't like this are used to relocate those who have lost everything. Philly's clenched her fist. Is that what the outside world is like? It isn't much but we will fight and die defending it. Uraraka said as she turned to the others. Thank you, all of you. I came here as a stranger to your lands yet you treated my injuries and opened your homes to me. I won't forget this kindness. Your Majesty, thank you for allowing me onto your island. Queen Elpis smiled. It's now your island too, young one. If you ever find yourself on our shores again we will welcome you. Uraraka nodded. Iros, thank you for saving me on that beach. I wish I could repay that debt. Iros walked over to Uraraka. Your thanks is enough. Iros then held out his hand. From my research of the outside world, I learned of this handshake. It's supposed to symbolize unity and respect for one another. Reaching out, Uraraka grabbed Iros's hand. I won't forget you. And neither shall I. With that, the two let go of each other. I should get going. My friends are waiting for me. Uraraka was about to turn and go through the portal when the mirror suddenly got bright. Everyone turned to find the ground around UA on fire and several explosions going off. Oh no, it's another attack. The mirror then showed a wave of Nomus running towards the campus. I have to go. Jumping through the mirror, Uraraka disappeared from the island. But the others couldn't keep their eyes off the images on the mirror. They saw the beasts rip apart people like they were nothing. They saw men and women fighting alongside each other. This isn't right, said Cleo. We should help them. The affairs of the outside don't matter to us, Elpis said. All we can do is bear witness. But isn't this what we Amazon are trained to do, help others? Questioned Iros. Cleo stepped forward. Iros is right, we have to help. I know, but I won't condemn my Amazon sisters to an unknown fate in an unknown world. Besides, once we leave the island we can never come back, Elpis said with a heavy heart. The mirror then showed Uraraka fighting with the sword Iros gave her. She commanded the civilians to run to Ua as she fended off several Nomus. Iros watched as people fell and died trying to protect others. Then send me, Iros yelled out. Everyone looked at Iros. What? Asked Elpis. Didn't you hear what I said? I did. You said you wouldn't condemn your Amazon sisters to an unknown fate. But we already established that I'm no Amazon, Iros said. Cleo was taken aback. Iros, what are you saying? Of course you are. Let's face the facts, Mom. I was never meant to be on this island. So send me to help those people, Iros demanded. Iros, no, Cleo said. I won't let you. But how can I just stand here and do nothing? Please, Your Majesty, you know what I'm saying is true, Iros says, staring directly at Elpis. You understand what you're saying, right? If you leave, you may never return here again, Elpis explained. You will be leaving behind those who love you. Are you willing to do that? Iros nodded. I am. He then looked at his mother. I need to do this. Cleo grabbed Iros by the shoulders. Please don't do this. If this is because we lied to you. Iros touched his mother's hand. While I haven't fully forgiven you or this island for what they did to me, I understand why you needed to keep this secret. But it goes beyond that. I need to know who I really am, and I won't find the answers here. Tears ran down Cleo's face as she looked at Iros. That look, you've already made up your mind, haven't you? Iros smiled. You did always know what I was thinking. But you should also know that I will come back, I promise. Don't make promises you can't keep. Wiping the tears away, Cleo looked at the queen and nodded. So be it, Iros. You are hereby ordered to go to the outside world and help in any way you can. Iros bowed. Cleo, it's time. Cleo hesitated at first, but knew what she had to do. Rushing into the halls of the palace, she ran into the armory. Going up to the back wall, she pressed a button that revealed a secret compartment. Grabbing the items, she quickly rushed back to the throne room. I wanted to give you this when you turned 18, but now we'll have to do, Cleo said, presenting Iros with the armor. Thanks, Mom. Quickly taking off his clothes, Iros changed into his new armor. It consisted of a gold and red chest plate, shin armor, and 2 golden wrist guards. For weapons, he had a shield with the symbol of the Amazons on it and a 20 inches long sword called a Xiphus. It was a one-handed double-edged sword, perfect for slashing and stabbing. With the scarab on his waist, Iros now looked like a warrior fit for battle. This armor is lightweight, but it feels tougher than regular armor. That's because it was forged using a rare metal found only on this island. It's meant to be stronger than others. Same goes for the sword and shield. Properly maintain it and it will serve you well. Also, it was your mother's, Elpis said. Iros turned to Cleo. And now it's yours, my son. She then walked over to Iros and smiled. I just wish we could have spent more time together. This won't be goodbye, Mom. Once I find the answers I need, I will return, said Iros. Cleo nodded. Hey Phillies, take care of things here. Phillies smiled. Sure thing, Iros, I got this covered. Nodding, Iros then walked over to the mirror. Putting the shield on his back along with the sword, he stopped. "I'll see you all soon. I swear." But just as he was about to pass through the mirror, Elpis called out to him, "Wait, there's still one more thing you should know." Iroh turned. "What is it?" The queen then leaned in and whispered something to Iroh. The others couldn't hear what she was saying. "Remember, only as a last resort." Iroh nodded. "I'll remember." Iroh bowed for the final time to his queen. "Thank you, Your Majesty." With that, Iroh jumped through the mirror. "Ua! Get everyone out of here!" Uraraka yelled as she sliced the hand off Inomu. "Sue! Iida! Cover the left, we got more coming." Sue, who had the slight appearance of a frog, nodded. "On it." Iida was a young man with engines in his legs. "Copy that." Uraraka jumped out from behind cover and stabbed the Nomu in the leg, causing it to fall to his knees. Once on the floor, Uraraka used her hand and touched the Nomu, causing it to float. Once it was high enough, Uraraka touched her fingertips together, causing the monster to fall splattering on the floor. "Mina, I need you to." But as Uraraka was issuing orders, a large hand smacked her across the face, causing her to lose her weapon. Skidding against the dirt, Uraraka came to a stop. Blood ran down her face from the impact. Damn it, where did he come from? Standing over her was a tall Nomu, his eyes and nose missing, replaced by nothing but a brain. Uraraka tried to jump back, but the beast was able to grab her leg and threw her down. "I can't win against it." As Uraraka tried to get up and run, the crying of a small child was heard. Uraraka looked to her right and found a young boy injured and alone. What's worse, the Nomu saw him too and began to walk over to his direction. Pushing herself off the ground, Uraraka reached out and tried to touch the Nomu to make it float, but just as her hand was going to reach, the beast turned around and grabbed her arm. Uraraka struggled in vain to free herself, but it was all for naught. Lifting her off the ground, the Nomu roared as it slammed her onto the ground with enough force to crack it. With blood running down her head, Uraraka laid motionless on the ground. With its prey now down, the Nomu turned back to its original target, the boy. Towering over the young boy, the Nomu reached out its hand open to crush the boy. But as it closed its hand, the boy disappeared. The beast lifted its hand, but as it did, his hand fell off. Roaring in pain, the Nomu looked around and found Iroh and the boy next to Uraraka. The Nomu growled as its hand regenerated and began to run towards the trio. Iroh smiled at the boy. "Keep her safe, kid, I'll deal with that." Running on all fours, the Nomu pounced at Iroh, but as he did, the young Amazon pulled out his shield. The Nomu crashed into the shield, pushing Iroh back several meters. Sliding against the ground, Iroh dug his feet and stopped the Nomu's momentum. Coming to a halt, Iroh's voice strained as he kept the beast back. "You're strong beast, but compared to my sisters, you're nothing." Using his strength, Iroh managed to push back the Nomu with his shield. Off balance, Iroh took this chance to stab the beast in the chest. But as soon as Iroh pulled his sword out, the Nomu began to heal. Do these things all heal? But he couldn't ponder the question anymore when a fist came flying at him. The shield took the attack as Iroh pushed slightly up, causing the fist to slide off the shield. Now with an opening, Iroh spun around and swung his sword right at the Nomu's neck. The blade was inches from cutting when the Nomu blocked the attack with its own forearm. But it wouldn't matter. The blade sliced through the arm and finally hit the neck. Landing on his feet, Iroh turned and walked towards the boy and Uraraka as the Nomu's body fell to the ground and its head rolled. Putting his shield on his back and his sword to his hip, he checked on Uraraka. The boy from earlier had a worried look. "Is she going to be okay? She saved me." "She'll be fine," Iroh said, reassuring the boy. "Can you show me where we can find someone who can heal her?" The boy nodded before pointing to the school. "In there." "Good." Iroh then picked Uraraka up. "Show me." Running ahead of him, Iroh followed the boy to the school. As they ran, Uraraka groaned and began to open her eyes. She managed to stay awake long enough to see Iroh, but that only made her head spin. "Iroh? No, that couldn't be. He's still on that island." Closing her eyes again, Uraraka fell unconscious. Recovery girl, an old woman who used a giant needle as a cane, was frantically running around trying to heal all those who came into the school's auditorium. Her quirk gives her the power to heal others by giving them a key asterisk. Only downside is that the healing process uses up the patient's own stamina. "This amount of people, it's more than last time," Recovery girl said as she healed another. We need to find a way to minimize our losses and save the people. Recovery Girl then walked to another person, but as he did, the young boy bursted through the auditorium doors. We need help over here. It's one of the heroes. RC snapped her head up. Oh no. Running over, she found Uraraka in Irose's arms. A student. She then looked at Irose. Her injuries don't seem as bad as I thought. Hold her still. Keying Uraraka on the forehead, a green sparkling light shined on Uraraka, indicating that the healing process has started. Irose immediately could tell she was better. Where do I set her down? She'll need to rest for a bit. Use the beds. Down towards the wall, there should be a free one. RC instructed. Irose nodded and went to put Uraraka down to rest. How about you, son? You have blood on you, RC said, appearing. I'm fine. It's not my blood. It belonged to those things outside, Irose explained. RC was surprised. You took down a Nomu? Are you a hero? Irose was confused. No, I'm a human being. No, that's not what I meant, RC said. I mean. But before RC could finish her sentence, Irose turned away. I assume she'll be fine here? RC nodded. Of course. Good. Now if you excuse me, I have some monsters to kill. With that, Irose walked out of the auditorium and back onto the front lines. Walking out of the building, Irose walked to the defensive line Ua was holding. There he saw several kids around his age using their quirks. One used ice to create walls and freeze the Nomus in place. Another used her quirk to slide around the battlefield and melt the Nomus down with her acid. If Irose could describe what he was seeing in one word, it would be disorganized. What is this? They have no plan, no formation, no nothing. They're just running around attacking them. Irose then walked over to the front line, where he was confronted by a tall girl with black hair and who wore a rather revealing hero costume. Hey you! You can't be here, it isn't safe. They're breaking through, she yelled. Confused, Irose looked at her and noticed that she was making ammo to refill her cannon. Don't worry about me. Focus on hitting the Nomus. You're aiming for their heads, aim for their legs, slow them down. The girl was shocked. What? Who are you anyway? But Irose ignored her and crossed the line. Shit. Guys, we got a civilian here. The boy who was using his ice reached to his earpiece. What? That's crazy. Who would be dumb enough to come here? A Nomu roared as it smacked the ice boy, hitting his arm where his ice was coming out. Sliding to a stop, the boy had blood running down his arm. It was broken. Damn it, I need backup. Really, Ice Cube? Hold on, I'll be there in a second, said another voice through the earpiece. This one you could hear the sound of explosions in the background. But the boy didn't have a second. Looking up, he saw a Nomu come running at him at full speed. He tried to use his quirk but couldn't lift his arm up. No. The Nomu roared as it jumped at him, but before it could kill him, Irose came flying in, his sword out in front of him. Slicing through the Nomu's head, he cut through its entire body, causing it to split into two pieces. Come on, get up. This fight isn't over, Irose said as he jumped into the fray. Irose came in swinging his sword at every Nomu he saw. One by one he sliced the heads off of each and every single one of them. But the Nomus suddenly got smart and began to gang up on him. One attacked him from the back, and as he was pushed forward, another punched him in the face. Irose swung his sword in an attempt to defend himself, but after he killed two, his sword was knocked out of his hand. But that didn't matter. With several Nomus piling on top of him, Irose jumped up. Pushing through the pile, he managed to grab one. Now several meters in the air, Irose and the Nomu began to fall. As they fell, Irose punched the beast down, causing it to crash into the ground. The beast roared as it saw Irose come flying down right on top of his head, splattering it. The other Nomus then took a chance to attack. One jumped at him from the side, but before it could reach, the young warrior grabbed it by the waist and pulled. The Nomus screeched out in agony as its body was ripped in two. Blood splattered across Irose's face as he dropped the Nomu, but just to be sure it would stay dead, he stepped on the brain. More Nomus came in eager to kill Irose, but it would prove to be a mistake. One by one, Irose beat down the beasts with his bare fists. More than appeared but stopped. Irose watched them, his knuckles dripping blood. Why did they stop? That's when they all suddenly began to turn around and run. They're retreating, Irose asked, puzzled. Smart move. Their numbers have dwindled and they lost control of the battlefield. Iroh's then walked over to his sword and picked it up. These ones were much weaker than the one on the island. Why send weak pawns to attack the enemy's stronghold? I'll have to ask Uraraka about this. He then began to walk back to the school when all of a sudden something wrapped around his body. What is this? A capture weapon, a voice said. Made of a special carbon fiber. A man wearing a black costume, black hair, and who had the tiredest face Iroh's had ever seen appeared. Before you do anything else, I have some questions. Iroh's looked at the fibers holding him. I just drove back the Nomus attacking your base and this is the thanks I get. We don't remember asking you for any help. The man said, tightening his grip on the fibers. You're no hero, you're just a kid. So tell me, who are you and where did you come from? Iroh sighed. Mother did warn me that the outside world was strange. Flexing his arms, Iroh broke out the capture weapon with ease. The man jumped back. Stop. His eyes began to glow red, signaling that his quirk was active. Your quirk has now been blocked, so I suggest you give up. But Iroh felt nothing. I heard about these quirks. I wonder what kind of power you have. The power to shut yours down, the man said. You should be powerless. Iroh looked at his arms. Nope, don't feel any different. The man clicked his tongue. Bullshit, how else were you able to take on those Nomu? Listen, I'm here to help, Iroh said, putting away his sword. This could be a trick, the man said, still unsure. A ruse to lower our guard. You could be working with him. If I was, you'd all be dead by now, Iroh said scornfully. Aizawa was about to pull out his knife from his back when a voice called out, Wait, Aizawa. Both men turned to find Uraraka being held up by the frog-looking girl. I know him. Uraraka, just who is this guy? Where did he come from, and why is he here? Aizawa asked. His name is Iroh, and he's a friend. Where he comes from, well, it's kind of a long story. Why he's here is also unknown. Uraraka said. Look, why don't we just go inside and I'll explain everything. Is that all right with you, Iroh? Iroh nodded. Very well. The group then went inside and found an empty classroom. This should be fine. All right, you two, explain. This kid showed up on the battlefield and managed to take down several of the Nomu like they were nothing. I want to know how and why he is here. Uraraka, go. Well, this is Iroh. I met him the other day when I crashed in the ocean. I washed up on the shores of a mysterious island, but as Uraraka was speaking, Aizawa jumped in. Wait, what? You were in a plane crash? Hold on, how are you even here, Uraraka? You weren't supposed to come back for another 3 days, Aizawa said, confused. About that, well, it's kind of hard to explain, but it has to do with him, Uraraka said, pointing at Iroh. Maybe it will be better if I start from the beginning. My name is Iroh, I come from a faraway land, and I am an Amazon warrior. Wait, Amazon warrior? As in the mythical women of Greek mythology? Aizawa asked. But you're a guy, aren't you? Iroh nodded. I am, but I was not born in Amazon. When I was young I washed up on the beaches of the island. My mother Cleo raised me as her own and trained me since I was able to walk. But yet I was a normal human child, that is until I received the blood of an Amazon and truly became one of them, or so I thought. Uraraka here also washed up on our shores, but she was being chased by Nomus. She was wounded and could no longer fight, so I finished off the ones chasing her and got Uraraka medical treatment. With our medicine it took a single day to fully heal her. After I was healed they took me to a palace and I met the queen of the Amazons. There she showed me a mirror and told me to think of the place I wanted to go, so I did. Once the image was set the queen told me to simply walk through and here I am. Uraraka said, as she finished explaining. But that still doesn't explain why you're here, Iroh. We need to find a way to get you back. I came here because I couldn't just watch these innocent people get hurt. I'm staying and helping you, said Iroh. Besides, I can't return even if I wanted to. What do you mean by that? Aizawa asked. Iroh sighed. You see, once an Amazon leaves the island they are never to return. Technically I'm not an Amazon, but I have the blood of one, so the rules apply to me. But I made a promise to my mother that I would come back. So this is what I'm proposing. I'll help you drive back the Nomus. In exchange you help me get back to my people. Also, Uraraka has told me that I'm from Japan. I wish to learn who I really am. Aizawa thought about it. You seem strong and your help would be appreciated. But I can't make this decision on my own. I need to talk to those who can. Can you wait for a bit? Iroh nodded. Of course. Good. Aizawa was about to leave when he thought of something, a bit of a test. If it turns out that you can't stay, would you join forces with the Nomus and attack us? No, answered Iroh, quickly and firmly. I saw a glimpse of what those things did to this place and I want no part. Besides, I saved Uraraka before and in a sense she saved me. I wouldn't betray the trust I have for her. I see. Aizawa turned and began to walk away. In the meantime, relax and go meet the others or something. Others? Questioned Iroh. Oh, he means Class 1A, my friends. Come on, I'll introduce them to you. Iroh then followed Uraraka to one of the buildings of the school. Walking up to the second floor they made it to a room marked 1A. Before we go in, keep in mind some of my friends can be strange. Just keep that in mind. Confused, Iroh raised an eyebrow as Uraraka opened the door. Inside the entire class of 1A sat around talking amongst themselves. That is until Sue noticed Uraraka, Ochako. Everyone inside turned and saw Uraraka. You're back. They yelled happily to see her again. How are you back so soon? Did you bring any help? They bombarded Uraraka with question after question. As they all asked, the tall black-haired girl from before noticed Iroh standing near the door. Hey, it's you. Everyone stopped and looked at who the girl was talking about. You're that crazy kid from before. Oh, is he the one you and Todoroki were talking about, Momo? Asked a girl with pink skin and hair. Momo nodded. Yeah, that's him. He saved Todoroki from some Nomus. Whoa, look at his muscles. He looks good, said another girl, who was invisible. Hey Uraraka, where did you find him? I know, right, said another girl with short purple-colored hair. Where was he all this time? Pushing her way to Iroh, she began to introduce him. Everyone, this is Iroh. He and I met while I was away. He saved me from some Nomus when I washed up onto an island. Turns out it was the island of the Amazons. Momo didn't believe it, as in the lost island of the Amazons? But those are merely myths. Besides, Amazon warriors were all women. He's a man. A nice strong man. Purred the girl with pink hair. I can check if he's a guy, you know, just to confirm. Mina. Uraraka yelled. As I was saying. His people helped me get to Ua quickly and well, here we are. Aizawa is asking Nezu for permission if he could stay and help us. He's crazy strong, he took down 3 Nomus by himself. The class was surprised. No way, said the girl with purple hair. It's true, Jiro. Momo said, confirming. I was watching when he sliced the Nomu in 2. Whoa, that's so manly, yelled out a boy with red hair. I'm Kirishima, by the way. If you stayed and helped, we'd be sure to take down more Nomus. That's when a boy with ash blonde hair scoffed. He doesn't look so strong to me. So what is his quirk? Don't have one, answered Iroh. What? Yelled most of the class. That's crazy, said Jiro. You were able to take down so many Nomus with no quirk. Why is that so surprising? Iroh asked. Well, you see, people with no quirks can't fight, so most people think of them as weak and helpless. Uraraka explained. So what, he just swings that sword around? Asked Bakugo as he smirked. Please, everyone with no quirk is useless. He probably used some trick or something. Want to find out? Iroh asked. Bakugo flinched. What was that? You heard me. Iroh said. Let's see if what you're saying is true about me. It's the only way to find out, isn't it? Bakugo clenched his fists. All right then, 300. Let's find out. Walking back down and behind the building, class 1A all lined up down at the track. Iroh stood at one side, while Bakugo at the other. Should we stop Bakugo from blowing up the new guy? Asked a boy with yellow hair. Nah, he'll be fine, said Kirishima. I think. I mean, if what Momo said is true, then it should be an even fight. Iroh dropped his sword and shield. For this fight he only needed his hands. He also took off his armor and was given a shirt with UA's logo. Are you sure you want to do this? Uraraka asked. Bakugo is one of our strongest. Iroh cracked his neck. Then this should be fun. Besides, I've been wondering about what these quirks can do. and he talks too much. Uraraka sighed. Just try not to get hurt, or hurt him too much. Bakugo may be a bit rude at times, but he's got a good heart. I'll keep that in mind, Iroh said. Ready when you are. Bakugo pointed his hands behind him. Go. Firing off explosions, he rocketed himself towards Iroh's. Once he was a few feet away, Bakugo stopped, spun around and aimed both hands at Iroh's. Die. Two massive explosions erupted from his hands, covering Iroh's in a ball of fire. Direct hit, yelled Kirishima. Are we sure this guy was as tough as you said? The fireball disappeared, leaving behind a cloud of thick black smoke. Bakugo was proud of himself. He just blew up this new guy like it was nothing. But as he self-gloated, a hand suddenly appeared from the smoke and grabbed him by the face. Was that it? A voice asked. Is that all you had to offer? The smoke cleared, revealing Iroh's, unscratched from the explosion. I thought these quirks were powerful. Guess yours is weak. Bakugo's eyes widened. Weak, he yelled out, his voice a bit muffled by Iroh's hand. I'll show you weak. Iroh tossed Bakugo aside, then stop messing around and fight me for real. Sliding against the ground, Bakugo gritted his teeth. You want to see what I got? Fine. Let's see if you can withstand this. Reaching into his pockets, Bakugo pulled out two small containers. Class 1A flinched when they saw the containers. He's not serious, is he? Asked Momo. I think he is, said Mina. Should we go call someone? Iida nodded. That would be a good idea. The boy quickly took off to find a teacher or anyone who could stop them. But it was too late. Bakugo once again rushed Iroh's. This time he has both containers clenched, one in each hand. I don't have my suit, but this will work just fine. As he got close to Iroh's, he tossed the two containers. Iroh's watched them in the air as they flew towards him. What, are these things supposed to scare me? No, they're supposed to hurt. Firing off two explosions from his hand, Bakugo hit both containers, which held nitroglycerin. The nitroglycerin ignited and set off a massive explosion that sent a shockwave throughout the school, and knocked everyone in 1A to the ground. The mushroom cloud reached high into the sky and left a crater. Bakugo's arms were nearly dislocated from his shoulder, but he somehow stayed standing. Breathing heavily, the student smiled. Cocky F*******. The smoke cleared, revealing that Iroh's wasn't where he was standing originally. At first Uraraka thought he got blown to pieces, but that's when a voice was heard. Now that's more like it. Everyone turned to find Iroh's with his arms crossed, standing a few meters away. Dropping his arms, the class saw a small amount of blood coming from the edge of his mouth. Iroh's wiped it off and smiled. That actually hurt. But it looks like you can't do that a second time. Pity, I was hoping for a challenge. Iroh's then took a step forward before disappearing. Bakugo blinked, and in that time Iroh's reappeared in front of him. But this is my win. Grabbing Bakugo by his head, Iroh's slammed it into the ground. A crack appeared where Bakugo's head hit the floor. Iroh's then stood up. Seeing that Bakugo wasn't able to fight anymore, he dropped him. Maybe train for another 100 years, then we'll fight again. But until then, it's best if you stay out of my way. Getting up, Iroh's began to walk towards Uraraka. Dusting himself off, he smiled. Iroh's was about to speak when Bakugo stood back up. I'm still here, you prick. Iroh's didn't even turn around. Give up, you're injured. There's no need to fight anymore. Bakugo's legs shaked. Oh, there's plenty of need. Sighing, Iroh's turned to Bakugo. I've seen your type before in some of my sisters. You're prideful, and think you're above everyone else. There's only one way to deal with people like you. Appearing in front of Bakugo, Iroh's had his fist pulled back. You beat them down. Iroh's don't. Uraraka yelled out, but it wouldn't matter. Iroh's fist landed and kicked up a cloud of dust. However, Iroh's fist never hit. Instead it was caught. Now kid, you really shouldn't be doing this to one of my students. The dust settled, and standing in between the two was a tall, muscular man, with blonde hair, and who had a wide smile. Iroh's pulled back his fist. Student? So you're his teacher. Maybe teach him some respect next time, it just might save his life one day. All Might smiled. I'll be sure to do that. I've never seen you here before. Who are you? Iroh's. Make sure he remembers too. With that, Iroh's turned his back on All Might. Oh, and nice job catching my punch, not many can do that. All Might laughed. It's good to meet you, Irohs. I sure hope you can stay and help us. As Irohs left, All Might looked down at his hand and noticed that the area where Irohs' fist hit was already bruised. That kid, that punch, he's strong. Irohs also looked at his fist. That man actually managed to stop my punch. Granted, I wasn't going all out, but still. I should be wary of him. Irohs, are you alright? Asked Uraraka. You're not hurt, are you? Irohs grabbed his sword and shield and put them on his back. No, I'm fine. So who's that? Oh, that's All Might. He's one of our teachers here at UA. He's also the #1 hero right now in Japan. Explained Uraraka. The #1, you don't say. Irohs watched as All Might checked on Bakugo. Not wanting more attention, Bakugo walked away from everyone. That's when All Might appeared. Well, now that that's out of the way, I actually came here to talk to our friend here. Nezu wishes to speak to you. Irohs nodded. It looks like you've made a decision. Very well then, take me to them. All Might motioned for Irohs to follow, which he did. Walking to UA's main building, the two walked up to the 4th floor. There was a door that had the words Nezu on it. Going inside, Irohs was met by a small mouse, bear-looking animal. Ah, you must be Irohs. It's a pleasure to meet you. Irohs tilted his head at this creature. This is your leader? Nezu laughed. While I'll admit my appearance is different, I assure you I am capable of making wise decisions. Like if you should be able to stay here or not. And, what conclusion did you come to? Irohs asked. Before that, I'd like to ask you some questions. If that's alright with you. Nezu said, walking over to his desk and taking a seat. Please. He then motioned to a chair. Irohs approached the desk and took a seat. From what Aizawa has told us, you come from the mythical island of the Amazons. But you are clearly Japanese, so my question is, who exactly are you? And why are you here? Nezu asked. In all honesty, I don't know who I am. And that's one of the reasons why I came to these lands. I want to find out who I am. Irohs explained. Nezu nodded. I see, so that's why you gave Aizawa that proposition. Then let me ask you this. You are clearly strong enough to take down several Nomus by yourself. If you wished it, would you be able to take us all on? Aizawa was surprised by the question. Why would he even ask that? Irohs thought about it. Considering how bad in shambles your forces are, I would say it would be easy. But that's not taking into account those quirks of yours. If I count for randomness, I'd say I would have some difficulty, but not a lot. I would take down everyone here in 10 minutes. I see. We are that weak compared to you. Then it's best we keep this cooperation beneficial for both of us. Nezu then extended out a paw. We'd like to accept your help, and in return we will do everything in our power to find out who you were and where you came from. Irohs reached out and took Nezu's paw. Good, just so you know, when those monsters come back I'll be doing my own thing. Don't expect me to follow any orders, unless you prove your worth. I'd like for you to stay with Class 1A, interacting with people your age will help you, said Nezu. You will also be provided with housing at the dorm for the students. Try to get along with them, they're good students. Irohs nodded. I will try. But if you really want any hope of beating these beasts, then you shouldn't be treating them like students, they should be acting like warriors. With that, Irohs walked out of the room, leaving only Nezu, All Might, and Aizawa. So what did you think of him, All Might? Nezu asked. It's like he said, he's strong. Maybe just as strong as me in my prime, even stronger, said All Might. Even while sitting down he never dropped his guard, never allowed himself to be open for an attack. He's one scary kid. I agree with All Might. Aizawa said. He broke through my capture weapon like it was nothing. He's also well trained. I saw him attack the Nomus. The way he moves is scary. He doesn't waste energy by doing anything unnecessary. He also is a master with the sword, but it takes years to master a weapon like that. And he's no older than our students. I can only imagine what kind of training he went through. Make sure to keep an eye on him, Nezu said. For now, Aizawa will stick with him. Make sure he stays out of trouble, and when it's time, point him to the battlefield. I think the tide has finally turned in our favor. With his help we may actually take back what we've lost. Back with Uraraka herself was currently being bombarded by several questions at a time by all of the girls in class. Mostly they asked about Irohs and if they had a special relationship together, to which she denied. But still he really is a hottie, Mina said giggling. You mean to tell me you don't have a thing for him? Toru nodded, apparent by her clothes moving. Right, I hope he stays. Let's wait until after Nezu has made up his mind before we do anything, Momo said, trying to calm everyone down. Exactly, Uraraka said. Besides, maybe Iroh wouldn't want to stay. Also, we don't have that kind of relationship, I barely know him. But as they were talking, the door to the class opened up and in walked Iroh and Aizawa. Alright everyone, listen up, I have a few things to say. First, please welcome the newest member here at UA, Iroh. He will be staying with us for the foreseeable future or until he deems it necessary to leave. Uraraka smiled as she heard the news. Second, I expect you all to increase your training. The last battle has shown me that you are not ready. And don't expect Iroh here to help you in every situation. Also, try not to argue with each other, save that energy for the Nomus. Any questions? That's when a hand shot up. Any word on the recon team? Iida asked. Aizawa shook his head. No, not yet. We expect them to call in soon. Anything else? Scanning the room, Aizawa didn't see any other hands. Alright then, rest up. Iroh, follow me, I'll show you to the dorms. Nodding, Iroh began to follow Aizawa out of the classroom, but as he left his gaze turned to Uraraka. He gave her a smile before disappearing through the door. The girls saw the smile he gave her and all turned to Uraraka with smirks on their faces. Nothing between you two, right, said Mina. Uraraka blushed. Shut up. Later that day, Class 1A were having dinner and talking amongst themselves. But as they ate, they noticed Iroh wasn't with them. Has anyone seen the new guy? Kirishima asked. He should be eating right now, no? Yeah, you're right. Where could he have gone? Questioned Momo. Outside, Iroh stood holding his sword. Closing his eyes, he steadied his breathing. Snapping his eyes open, Iroh swung his sword around before slashing down, up, left, right, and finally thrusting it forward. As the blade stopped, a small burst of wind pushed some dirt off the ground. Breathing heavily, Iroh had sweat dripping down his forehead. I think it's time for a break. A voice said behind him. Iroh turned to find Uraraka. Water? She then tossed over a bottle of water. Iroh caught it and began to drink. Thanks. Don't mention it, she said, getting closer. Why aren't you with the rest of us? Not hungry? No, I'm fine. Just figured I'd get a workout before heading to the bath. Iroh explained. My mother would freak out if I missed training. He then looked up at the night sky. Not as many stars here, but still beautiful. Uraraka smiled as she stood beside Iroh looking up at the sky. I was wondering, Uraraka. All these students. Their parents must not be happy with their sons and daughters fighting in this war. I think any parent would feel that way. But some of us fight for our parents. Uraraka turned to Iroh. I lost my parents during the first wave of AFO's attack. I live every second of every day regretting not being there with them. I was depressed and wanted to just give up, but Ua saved me. That's when I got to meet a kind, strong woman who took care of me. She's the one who taught me how to fight. So you fight for revenge? Questioned Iroh. But Uraraka shook her head. No, I fight to live, to make sure no one else suffers like we have. However, if given the chance, would I take revenge? Of course, who wouldn't? But that's not my main goal. Iroh smiled. It's the opposite for us. If someone has wronged you, go after them, but always with a cool head. Rushing into battle with your mind fixated on one thing is bad. It makes you predictable. This woman you spoke of, is she a teacher here at UA? I'd like to meet her if possible. No, actually, she just works with the school on recon missions and information gathering. Uraraka explained. But you'll be able to meet her, soon I hope. She's returning from a mission. Iroh nodded. I see, then I guess it's best if we rest. Iroh then unbuckled his chest plate armor, causing it to fall onto the ground so hard that it broke the ground. Iroh sighed in relief, now free from his armor. Uraraka's eyes widened. How heavy is that anyway? Rotating his shoulders, Iroh thought about it. About 100 kilos, so about 220 pounds. And you've been running around in that? Uraraka yelled out in shock. Do all Amazon warriors wear that kind of armor? Iroh shook his head. Not everyone. This is actually the lightweight version. Most of the armor on the island is heavier. The one the Nomu shattered on the beach was our standard one at 150 kilos, or 330 pounds. That's insane. Just how strong are you? Uraraka asked. Iroh's thought about it. On the island I was never allowed to participate in the champion games. It was basically a tournament to determine who was the strongest fighter on the island. At first I thought I wasn't allowed because I was weak, but in reality it was because I was a man. So I can't really compare myself to my sisters. Well, considering you took down several Nomus, I'd say you are one of the strongest here. Maybe even stronger than All Might, said Uraraka. All Might, so that's his name. I was surprised when he stopped my punch, not many can do that. Explained Iroh's. I wonder who would win in a fight, me or him? Iroh's smirked. Questions for another day I guess. Let's get some rest. Uraraka nodded. Yeah, good night Iroh's. After taking a bath Iroh's went straight to his designated room in the dorms. As he laid in bed and his eyes slowly began to close he thought back to his mom, his sisters on the island. I will see you again. Island of the Amazons. Cleo was currently with the queen looking up at the stars. Do you think he's safe? Cleo asked. Elpis smiled. You know as well as I do that Iroh's is strong enough to take care of himself. You taught him well, didn't you? Cleo nodded. Then you shouldn't worry. I know, but the mirror broke when he walked through it. It's a bad sign, Elpis. I don't like it. Cleo clenched her hands. He'll be fine. Trust me. Trust Iroh's. Elpis then placed a hand on her friend's shoulder. We'll see him again. I know we will. Next morning it was early in the morning when Iroh's was suddenly awoken by the sounds of an alarm going off. Jumping out of bed Iroh's grabbed his armor and sword and ran out of the door and down towards the lobby. There he found all of Class 1A already in their hero costumes and Aizawa standing at the door. Alright everyone, we have a code gray alert. A large pack of Nomus have been spotted headed to a small safe zone area nearby. Our task is to rescue as many people as we can. The Nomus are second priority. Protect the innocent, protect your friends, but most important, protect yourselves. Let's go, we leave in 3 minutes. Nodding, the class all went to get their gear ready. Aizawa then walked over to Iroh's. We need your help on this one. The Nomus are going to be a problem. Will you be able to hold them off while we evacuate the civilians? How much time do you need? Iroh's asked. We have transport vehicles ready, so I'd say 10 minutes, Aizawa explained. Iroh's nodded. I'll give you 20. With that Iroh's went back upstairs to grab his shield and join the others on a transport vehicle. Everyone sat down where they could and all they could do was wait until they arrived. Uraraka, these Nomus, they all don't have the same powers, do they? No, their powers range from basic strength to quirks that have destructive capabilities. Uraraka explained. Some could use the quirk of the person they were created from. Going into battle with an enemy we can't accurately predict what kind of power they have is dangerous, Iroh's said. Oh well, you look at that wonder kid over here is scared, Bakugo said in a mocking way. Iroh's glared at Bakugo. Rushing into battle without knowing what you're up against is suicide. I'm surprised you've made it this far. Bakugo clenched his fist, but before he could do or say anything else Aizawa yelled, Enough. Use that energy for the Nomus. 2 minutes out, get ready. The hero then looked out the window and noticed smoke. Damn it. We're too late. Iroh's noticed the smoke as well as got up from his seat. Uraraka was confused at what he was doing. He then walked over to the door of the transport vehicle and pried open the door. It'll be faster if I run. I'll clear a path for you. Aizawa was surprised. Iroh's don't stick to the plan, but it was too late. Iroh's had already jumped out of the bus and sped off towards the smoke faster than the vehicle. Iroh's quickly made it to where the smoke was but was surprised to find only that it was only a car that was burning. This safe zone was just a few houses in a small residential area. Looking around at his surroundings, Iroh's didn't feel anything or anyone looking at him. Strange, there's no one here. The transport vehicle soon arrived. Iroh's. Aizawa yelled. I told you to stay on the bus. Why would you run out like that? That was pretty crazy, Mina said, stepping off the bus. But as he yelled, Iroh's put his hand up before bringing a finger to his lips, telling everyone to shut up. Aizawa focused and began to look around. Something's wrong here. It's quiet. There are signs of life here, so where are they? Wait, it's quiet, too quiet. The students all readied themselves for a fight but could see no enemy. Kaminari, one of the students with an electricity quirk, had his back turned to the buildings. I don't like this. It's like the scene in one of those movies where the enemy comes out. But as Kaminari was speaking, the roar of a Nomu was heard directly behind him. The class turned around to see a skinny Nomu with an enlarged mouth try to bite him. Kaminari tried to activate his quirk but he wouldn't make it in time. He closed his eyes and braced for the bite, but before the monster could bite him, Iros came flying in with his shield. Knocking the beast away, Iros pinned it against the floor with his shield. It tried biting and clawing at him, but Iros simply raised his sword and stabbed into its brain, killing it. Iros then walked over to Kaminari. Off your back. Helping the student up, he turned and raised his shield. That was close, Kaminari said as he stood back up. It isn't over yet, Iros said. We walked right into a trap. The class looked around at the houses and saw several Nomus on each home and coming from the streets. Aizawa tried to radio for help, but before he could, the Nomus came running at them. Form up, Aizawa yelled, and don't break formation. Everyone in the class then formed up into a circle, but Iros didn't. Instead of falling back with the others, he instead jumped towards a Nomu and sliced its head clean off. He then turned and picked up the fallen Nomu and threw it. Its body went flying through the air and into the one that was attacking Aizawa. Don't stay still, Iros yelled. You're leaving yourself open to attack. Fight. The class all charged in towards the Nomus. Iros took the lead and was killing several while groups of students took out some individually. But as Iros sliced through the torso of another, he noticed something. He looked over to the others. They seemed to be keeping up. Class 1A worked as a team and attacked as a group when facing a Nomu. Todoroki would freeze them. Uraraka would cause them to float, then drop them. As they fell, either Bakugo or Kirishima would take them down. But as the Nomu's numbers began to dwindle, Izuku took notice of something. These are weak. Pulling his sword out of the head of one, Iros sheathed it. Aizawa nodded. They do seem to be rather weak. Iros scanned his surroundings. This was a perfect chance to kill some of the students. Why not capitalize on it? Unless... Snapping his head up, Iros's eyes widened as he watched a Nomu come crashing down. He looked at where it would land and noticed that it would be right above Uraraka. Move, he yelled out. Everyone turned to Iros. The Amazon warrior pushed past them and reaching out, he managed to push Uraraka out of the way just as the Nomu came crashing down atop of him. The ground caved and broke. The class shielded themselves from the debris that was kicked up. Iros, yelled Uraraka. The dust soon cleared and everyone's face turned to shock as the Nomu stepped on Iros's back. Shit. It's a high-grade Nomu, Aizawa warned. Look out for its... But just as Aizawa was to warn them, the Nomu spread out its arms and began to fire spikes in every direction. Those who put up barriers did as the spikes flew right at them. But some weren't as lucky. A couple of the students were pierced by spikes in their legs or arms. Uraraka managed to escape harm thanks to Todoroki putting up a wall of ice in front of her. Aizawa used his quirk and deactivated the spikes, but the damage was done. Everyone, into formation. But as he yelled out orders, the Nomu roared and charged Aizawa. It raised its fist, but before it could attack, Bakugo flew in. Die! He yelled, firing off a massive explosion that launched the Nomu away. I'll take care of this one. Check on Leonidas over there. Using his explosions to launch himself, Bakugo went after the Nomu. Bakugo, wait. But it was too late. Damn it. Uraraka, check on Iros. Todoroki. Yaoyorozu. Su. Kaminari, come with me. Nodding, the students quickly followed Aizawa, while Uraraka went to check on Iros. Finding him with his face buried into the ground, she feared the worst. Help me get him out, Uraraka said, as she pulled. Mina and Kirishima pulled on him and managed to free him. Turning Iros on his back, they could see that he had no real injuries. Did he get knocked out? Mina asked. Cause if he did, I volunteered to do CPR. Uraraka checked for a pulse. He's breathing, just not awake. Come on Iros, get up. As they tried to wake him up, a bolt of lightning struck a few blocks down from their location. That's Kaminari's lightning, Kirishima said. We need to go help them. Come on Iros, wake up, Uraraka said, trying to shake him awake. I'm up, he said, much to everyone's surprise. Whoa, we thought you were a goner, Mina said, helping him up. No, I was just, Iroh sighed. If Cleo saw me she would be laughing at me right now. Spitting on the floor the group noticed that it was blood. Where did it go? Uraraka pointed, that way. Iroh nodded, good, I'll be right back. Squatting down, Iroh jumped towards the direction he was pointed at. With Aizawa he pushed his students out of the way of incoming spikes only to have one stab into his thigh. I can't keep my eyes open forever. Kaminari, slow it down. Su. You're next, Aizawa yelled. Nodding, Su jumped into the air. Kaminari saw this and stopped his lightning. The Nomu's body smoked as a result of the lightning, but it didn't even have time to heal when Su's tongue wrapped itself around the beast's body. Using all of her strength she flung the beast into the air. Todoroki. Lifting his hand up, Todoroki created spikes that flew into the air and pierced the Nomu through the abdomen. Letting his ice disappear, Todoroki watched as the beast crashed onto the floor. Momo. Momo was standing in the middle of the street with two large cannons by her side. Lighting the fuse, she covered her ears as the cannons fired two spiked balls. The Nomu got up and managed to slap one away, but the other one hit true and ripped out a chunk of its shoulder. The monster groaned as it fell to a knee, but that's when Bakugo came rocketing in. Die. A massive explosion rocked the area, causing windows to shatter and trees to topple. Jumping back with Aizawa, he smirked. He wasn't so tough. It's still not over, Aizawa said. The Nomu suddenly roared as the wounds on its body healed completely. We need to attack it again. Once I deactivate his quirk, rush in and... Aizawa was giving orders when a piece of concrete slammed into his face at a high rate of speed. Bakugo winced as Aizawa dropped to the floor unconscious and with blood running down his nose. Damn it! Rushing in to attack, Bakugo fired off another explosion. But before the smoke cleared, a hand reached out and grabbed him by the head. The Nomu squeezed hard, causing Bakugo to grunt in pain. Why you? Bakugo! Todoroki yelled as he created ice spikes. The Nomu saw them approach. It then threw Bakugo towards the spikes. Todoroki's eyes widened. He reshaped his ice spikes into a wall, but Bakugo was thrown with enough speed that he shattered it and crashed into Todoroki. The Nomu stood there, but as it did, a cannonball hit it behind the head. It turned and watched another zip by its head. Get away from them. Another two were fired, but this time the Nomu grabbed them both out of the air with his bare hands. And no way, Kaminari, hit it. Kaminari's lightning sparked around him and he did manage to fire, but the lightning did nothing. The Nomu was adapting. Step by step the Nomu approached Kaminari. He fired his lightning in a desperate attempt to take it down, but nothing was working. Now standing in front of the student, the Nomu raised its fist and brought it down. Kaminari closed his eyes, but just as he was about to get squished, a sword came in and sliced the Nomu's arm off from the wrist down. The Nomu reeled back and roared in pain. It looked to its right only to find Iroh flying at its shield first. Smashing into the Nomu, Izuku twisted his body and managed to grab both of its arms, turning them around and bending them back. Loud cracks were heard as Iroh landed. That was for catching me off guard. Iroh then lifted up the creature and using his strength, he threw it high into the air. Kaminari and Momo watched it, while Iroh slowly walked over to his sword and picked it up. The Nomu soon approached, falling at an accelerated pace, but Iroh simply looked up, gripped his sword tight, and as it fell beside him, moved ever so slightly. The Nomu's body slammed into the ground. Momo was confused. What just happened? He just stood there. I saw his arm twitch for a split second, but that's it, Kaminari said. But as the two looked on in confusion, Iroh kicked the Nomu's body away. As it rolled, its arms fell off, followed by its legs, and finally its head. That was for hurting them. Putting his sword and shield away, Iroh walked towards Aizawa, who was barely getting up. You all right? With blood running down his face, Aizawa groaned. I'll live. Are the others okay? Iroh nodded. They fought well. Good. Iroh then helped Aizawa up. Let's get out of here. Agreed. Iroh then checked on the others and was helping Aizawa back towards the other group when he felt someone looking at him from afar. Aizawa took notice. What is it? Another Nomu? No, Iroh answered. We're being watched. Scanning his surroundings, Iroh narrowed his eyes towards the direction of a wall. Behind the wall, a villain wearing a black bandana over his mouth was currently breathing heavily. There's no way that kid took down that Nomu. It's just not possible. In his hands was a cell phone. The boss needs to see this. He needs to know about this kid. The villain was able to put his phone away when a hand suddenly broke through the wall right beside his face. It then grabbed him by the face and pulled him through the cement wall. The villain was then flung, causing him to drop the phone. Rolling to a stop, the villain was now face to face with Iroh. "Who are you?" Iroh asked. But the villain didn't answer, only letting out a small grunt. "Screw you." That's when Izawa appeared. "Iroh, you caught a subordinate of AFO. Good, now we can make him talk." But as Izawa stood there, Iroh pulled out his sword and stabbed the man in the chest, killing him instantly. "No." The villain dropped his head as Iroh pulled his sword out, now covered in blood. Slashing his sword down, Iroh stained the floor with blood before putting it away. Izawa then turned Iroh around and grabbed him by the arms. "Why did you do that? We could have made him talk." Iroh raised an eyebrow. "Why, you ask? He wasn't going to talk, so I eliminated him. We still could have used him. Besides, we don't kill," Izawa said, tightening his grip on Iroh. "You don't kill? Why? Is this not a war zone? Are you not fighting to save your homeland?" Iroh asked. "Did he not help in murdering countless? He helped in hurting some of your students. Is that not reason enough? Even so, we are heroes. We don't kill, we have a moral obligation to be better than the villains we fight, not worse," Izawa explained. "Once we get back, you'll explain yourself to Nezu." That's when Iroh freed himself from Izawa's grasp. "I don't need to explain myself to anyone. I'm not one of your students, Izawa. This is war. You kill your enemies or they'll kill you, simple as that." Turning, Iroh began to walk away. Izawa gritted his teeth as he watched Iroh leave. Damn it. Arriving back on UA's campus, Iroh was silent. He immediately jumped off the transport truck and walked away. Most of the class was surprised by this. "What's up with him?" Mina asked. "Is he still embarrassed about earlier?" "No," answered Momo. "He got chewed out by Izawa. He killed a villain while he was already unwilling to fight." The class eyes widened. Whoa. But there was one person who was even more surprised, Uraraka. She watched him leave and knew she had to talk to him. Days soon turned to night and Iroh was called into Nezu's office, but he had little to say and walked out soon after. As he walked through the campus, he stopped when he saw someone standing in his path. "Uraraka. I heard about what you did," she said, walking towards him. "If you're here to lecture me, save your breath. It doesn't matter if people think what I did was wrong. Killing is part of war. Those villains you fight wouldn't hesitate to do the same to you," Iroh explained. Uraraka nodded. "I know, and at some level, I agree with you. I watched the Nomu kill people that weren't heroes. I've seen villains taking advantage of those who seek help." "So you get it," Iroh said. "You told me your parents died because of men like the one I killed. Don't you want to kill the ones responsible?" Clenching her fists, Uraraka once again nodded. "I do, more than anything." Iroh stepped forward. "Then you get it, but," Uraraka said, interrupting him, "I also know that we as heroes have a responsibility to not stoop to their level." "And what if one day you meet the one who killed your parents?" Iroh asked. "Will you kill them?" "I don't know, but until that day comes I have to be better," Uraraka said. "I know you Amazon warriors are just that, warriors. You train from birth, so fighting is in your blood. But I also know that you're human, capable of compassion, goodness. You did save me after all, and that's what heroes do, they save people." "I've already told you before, I'm no hero," Iroh said. "I'll keep doing what I do to get the answers I want. Nothing more, nothing less. Just think about it, okay? Oh, before I forget, thank you." Uraraka bowed slightly. "You saved us today, saved me. I just wanted to thank you for that." Iroh smiled. "No need to thank me. No, there is a need. Without you we may have lost some people today," Uraraka said. "Actually, I was hoping you'd train me to fight as well as you can. In exchange I can teach you about Japan and hopefully more about yourself." "Oh, you want Amazonian training?" Iroh questioned. "All right, I'll train you, but be warned, this training will not be easy." "I'm aware, even so, I want to become stronger," Uraraka said, her eyes gleaming with passion. Iroh smirked. "All right then, you have yourself a deal. Tomorrow evening, Meet me here and bring your weapon." With that, Iroh went off to train by himself, and all the while Nezu watched from his office. "Besides the killing the villain thing, did you notice anything else?" Aizawa, who was standing behind the desk, nodded. "When he's fighting, he turns off everything else. Focused solely on the fight. He fights with precision, and when taken off guard he becomes embarrassed." Nezu hummed. "I see. Anything else?" "He saved Uraraka, right before she was going to get crushed by a Nomu," Aizawa said. "Interesting." Nezu then turned to Aizawa. "Keep him under watch. See how he adapts, and if you notice anything suspicious let me know." Aizawa nodded. "Right. Any leads on who he is yet?" "I had the support department run a search through all databases, police, school, hospitals, nothing. They all came up empty for a boy born 14 years ago who has green hair and eyes." Nezu explained. "But I've seen his face before, but I just can't remember who it is yet." "A friend?" questioned Aizawa. No, I don't think so," Nezu said, thinking hard. "Or was it a friend? I'm sure it'll come to me. In the meantime, the recon team is set to arrive soon." "They finally reported in? What did they say?" questioned Aizawa. "Nothing good. Apparently AFO is going to launch a full-scale attack soon," Nezu warned. "I just hope we're ready for it." Unknown location. The sound of a heart monitor was heard coming from a dimly lit room. There in the middle of the room was a chair, and sitting on that chair was a rather large-looking man. He wore a suit, with a mask covering his face, a breathing apparatus, and several wires coming out of him. Just then the door of the room opened up and in walked someone. "Master, I bring news." "Ah, Shigaraki, my boy, what news do you bring?" The person's voice was loud and powerful. "The group of Nomus we sent out for the ambush have all disappeared," the person said, their voice trembling. "Even the high grade?" the voice asked, curiosity filling their voice. "Yes sir, along with the pawn we sent with them." The person then bowed. "I'm sorry master, I should have done better." "Shigaraki, do not worry. This is but a minor blunder. We learn from our failures, just make sure to be careful next time," the person said. "So tell me, was it All Might? Or maybe that third year?" "Actually, it was neither. An unknown hero managed to tell them all out," Shigaraki said. AFO turned. "An unknown hero? It couldn't have been someone abroad, we took care of that. Actually, we lost contact with the two Nomus we sent after the girl," Shigaraki explained. "We also found our pawn's body and phone. It seems he was killed." "Killed you say? The heroes don't kill," AFO said, his interest now piqued. "Well, apparently this one does." Shigaraki then reached into his pocket and pulled out the dead villain's phone. "Take a look, the pawn took a video before he died." Taking the phone, AFO pressed play on the video and watched Iroh kill the high-grade Nomu with ease. "He looks young. About the age of those students. But to kill the Nomu so easily, find out more about him. And find out where those two Nomu went." Shigaraki nodded. "The doctor is already looking into that. The tracking chip planted into them might be damaged, but the doctor says he can remotely activate it. It should be a matter of time." "Good, we are so close to our goal. I won't let it be delayed by this boy. The high-grade Nomus are almost ready. We shall know how strong this boy actually is." "There is also another thing you should know about," Shigaraki said. "It's about a recent break-in we had at one of our research facilities. She broke in and took sensitive information about our new project." AFO clenched his hand and shattered the phone in his hands. "It was her again. Find her and kill her. I don't care what you have to do. Just make sure she doesn't get back to Ua." Island of the Amazons. Cleo was out gathering food in the forest near her home when two of the Queen's guards showed up. "Lady Cleo, the Queen wishes to speak to you." "What's so important that she sent two guards?" Cleo questioned. "Well, whatever, but can I at least take this back home?" After dropping off her harvest, Cleo was escorted to Queen Elpis. But instead of finding her alone, she was surrounded by several other Amazons. "Cleo, you're here good. There's something you must see. It involves those creatures that attacked Iroh." The Amazon women who were around Elpis parted ways, revealing the bodies of the three Nomus. "Those beasts? What are they doing here?" Elpis nodded and an Amazon walked over and handed her over something. "Our healers wanted to know about this thing's biology, so I allowed them to open it up." They found 3 interesting things about these things. First is that they were once humans, mutated but humans nonetheless. The girl wasn't lying when she said this AFO was turning humans into these beasts. Second is that their strength can rival our own. Cleo's eyes widened. As strong as us? Does that mean? I'm not sure about Iroh's, but these can be as strong as me or any one of us warriors. Elpis said, her face filled with the realization. Maybe even as strong as you in your prime. Iroh's, if he ever encounters one of those. Cleo then felt a hand on her shoulder. He will be fine. The healers tell me to pull that off they would need a superhuman specimen, and no one is as strong as us in the outside world. Elpis said, trying to reassure her friend. Cleo nodded. Good, good. So what's the third thing? This. Elpis then held up a small cube-looking device. It's some sort of box, maybe magic from the outside world. I've never seen anything like that, Cleo said, taking the small device. A cube? It almost looks like a dice. As Cleo was looking at the cube, a red light began flashing. Dropping the cube, Elpis pulled out her sword. The guards soon jumped in front of them. What just happened? Cleo asked. The cube, it started to beep. Elpis said, putting away her sword. My queen, let's get you out of here, a warrior said. Elpis nodded. Amazons, move. The guards then slowly began to back away, their shields up and their sword pointed at the cube as they left the room. Once safely out of the room, Cleo and Elpis were taken to the throne room. We need to find out what the flashing light was about. Elpis said. Have our scientists look into it and report to me as soon as they know. The warriors bowed before leaving to execute her orders. Elpis then looked at her friend, who had a worried look on her face. Cleo. I'm fine, just worried about Iroh's. To think there is something out there that can hurt, possibly kill him. It terrifies me, Cleo said. The chances of that are low. I'm sure Iroh's will be fine. He did promise he'd come back one day. We just have to wait and see. Elpis said. In the meantime, why don't we go hunting? It's been a while since we've done that together. Unless, you've lost your edge. Cleo smirked. Most of my strength may be gone, but my senses haven't dulled. I'm ready when you are. Awesome. Let's get some gear and head out. With that, the 2 Amazon women went to collect some gear. Meanwhile, Japan, unknown ruined city. Man, the Nomus have really done a number on this city, said a woman, her voice as quiet as can be as she hid in the shadows. And unless the others want to end up like this, I better hurry back to UA. Making their way through the destroyed buildings, the woman kept looking around, like she was looking for something, or rather trying to avoid something. Hearing the sound of wood breaking behind her, the woman flinched and turned around slowly, only to see that it was a rat. You scared me. I thought you were a... But as the woman was speaking, the wall behind her suddenly exploded. The woman fell to the floor as dust and debris covered her. Damn it. Scrambling, she got up and began to run through the apartment building she was in. Making it to another wall, it too suddenly exploded out, forcing her to turn to the left. There, a door was seen that led to the outside. Slamming into the door, the woman ran through an alley. Looking back, she could see dust and the outline of a large figure. Shit. The figure then ran through the dust, revealing it to be a Nomu. The beast chased after the woman, and was approaching fast. It roared, the woman's face filled with fear, as it appeared behind her in an instant and raised its hand into the air. The woman turned and tried to use her quirk to defend herself, but it was too late. The Nomu smacked her away and into the main street. Rolling to a stop, the woman grunted in pain. Damn it. She then felt up her pocket and felt some relief. The data, it's still in one piece. Saying that, the Nomu walked towards the woman. I have no choice now. Getting to her feet, the woman lifted her arms into the air. The surrounding buildings then began to shake violently. The Nomu looked around to see pieces of the buildings crumble. It knew what the woman was doing and quickly charged her, but that sealed its fate. Bringing her arms in, the woman caused the buildings to come crashing down atop the Nomu. The beast roared as pieces of concrete and glass ripped through its body. Now buried underneath several tons of steel and concrete, the Nomu's roar faded. Finally able to take a break, the woman sighed. All right. Time to get to Ua but before the woman could speak any further, 2 more Nomus came crashing through a wall behind her. Oh, come on. The next day, the sun was barely rising. Uraraka stood out in the track as the cold wind blew past her hair. Did we have to get up this early? Iroh nodded as he placed down his spear and shield. One's body is most flexible and fluid when you wake up. Now, did you bring your sword? Uraraka reached and unsheathed the sword which was attached to her hip. Good, now show me how you hold it. Uraraka gripped the hilt of the sword with two hands. Ah, there's your first problem. That sword, it's a one-handed weapon. You usually have a shield in your offhand but you can't really use that. Oh right, your quirk. Iroh thought about it. Do you have something to cover your fingertips? Uraraka nodded. Yeah, I have specialized gloves for when I write or draw. They're up in my dorm. Hold on, I'll go get them. Uraraka then ran back up towards her dorm, leaving Iroh to practice by himself. As he swung his sword he stopped. I know you're there. Come out. Iroh got no response. Fine. Looking over towards a group of trees, Iroh, and without saying another word, grabbed his spear and threw it towards the trees. The spear pierced the tree and went straight through, but before it could hit the ground a large hand caught it. That was uncalled for. Appearing from behind the tree was All Might. Says the person spying on us. Iroh answered back. Do you need something? All Might walked over to Iroh. No, nothing, just wanted to test something out. Without saying another word, All Might rushed Iroh with his fist pulled back. Iroh's eyes widened at the last second. He saw All Might's fist in front of his face. A loud boom echoed throughout the field as dust was kicked up. Slowly the dust cleared and now it was All Might's turn to be surprised. What's this about? Iroh asked, as he held back All Might's fist. Explain, before I defend myself. All Might pulled his arm back. Iroh, was it? Fight me. Iroh was confused. Why? There is no need. I need to make sure, All Might said, putting up his guard. Sure of what? Iroh asked. But All Might didn't answer the question. Instead he appeared suddenly in front of him and delivered a powerful blow to his stomach. The impact was hard enough to where Iroh slid back several meters. Coming to a stop, Iroh grabbed at his stomach. If I offended you in some way, I'm sorry. But as Iroh was apologizing, All Might appeared again. But this time it was All Might's turn to go flying back. Slamming into the tree and hitting the ground hard, the hero shook his head. I don't know why you are doing this, but it stops now. All Might got to his feet and wiped away the blood running down his lip. Not until I figure out what your intentions are. Grabbing the tree trunk, All Might ripped it out of the ground and swung it. Iroh lifted his arm in an attempt to block it. Hitting Iroh with it, the tree shattered. Pieces of wood went in every direction, providing cover for All Might. Iroh looked through the wood only to see All Might was gone. He's fast. He then looked up, just in time to see All Might punch him across the face. Iroh's head swiveled to the side as the ground underneath his legs cracked from the impact. Giving him no chance to recover, All Might then followed it up with an uppercut. The young Amazon went flying into the air, but even then All Might jumped up after him. Detroit, smash. Finishing it off, All Might punched Iroh across the face, sending him rocketing back towards the ground and creating a hole in the ground. And here I thought, since you took down several Nomu, you'd be stronger. Suddenly Iroh's arm appeared from the ground. Picking himself up, Iroh got to his feet. All Might could see his face was covered in scuff marks and scratches. Spitting on the ground, Iroh noticed that it was blood. Nothing to say? All Might asked. Come on, fight me. Slowly, Iroh reached his sides and began to unstrap his armor. Taking it off, Iroh said nothing as he held it up in front of him and let go. The armor fell to the ground with a loud thud that even All Might flinched. So what, you took off your armor? That won't, but as All Might spoke he noticed that Iroh was gone. Huh? Behind you. Iroh's voice said. All Might swung his arm behind him but hit nothing but air. What's wrong, All Might? Iroh asked, his voice coming from behind the hero. Swinging his arm, All Might aimed for Iroh's voice but once again hit nothing. Uraraka said you are the #1 hero. The strongest hero. Gritting his teeth, All Might turned around, but as he did the hero felt a powerful punch hit his stomach. Spitting out blood, All Might hunched forward. I see now why this country fell into such disarray. Jumping up, Iroh kicked the hero across the face, sending him back. With blood running down his nose, All Might glared at Iroh. You're still holding back, aren't you? So are you. Iroh said. Come. Show me what the #1 hero is capable of, and I'll show you what an Amazon could really do. All Might nodded and clenched his fist. Iroh's readied himself. But just as the hero was going to throw the punch, he stopped. It's best if we stopped here. We wouldn't want to involve other people in our little duel. Iroh's turned around to find Uraraka running back over. The Amazon looked back to All Might. Very well. So are you going to tell me what that was all about? Your punches, I could feel it, you weren't trying to actually hurt me. I wanted to know what your true intentions were. You can tell who someone really is when they fight. And it seems like you fight to kill. All Might turned around. I won't say what you did to that villain was wrong, but I won't say it was the right choice either. I believe in second chances. I believe people can be redeemed. But if you kill them, they won't get that chance. If that's how you feel, then I'm sorry to say that your country will fall. Iroh said. You have heroes, good, but you don't need heroes in a war. You need killers, an army. Your soft ways won't work on those who don't care. I came to these lands to help, to end people's suffering and to find out who I am. Get in my way, and I promise you I won't hold back like I did just now. Iroh's turned to walk towards Uraraka. We have a mission we'd like your help with. Just tell me when. Iroh's then picked up his weapon. Oh, and one more thing, your condition is deteriorating. I suggest you take it easy. All Might couldn't believe it. How did he? It had now been 6 weeks since Iroh's first arrived at UA. And his adjustment to life outside was difficult to say the least. Things he deemed normal turned out to be socially unacceptable in most cases. For example, back on the island, Iroh would frequently bathe with women. He tried joining them one time and was immediately kicked out. After a stern talking to, and an explanation by Aizawa, he understood why it wasn't acceptable to do. Another thing was his way of speaking. Iroh spoke in a straightforward manner and never understood any sarcasm or jokes. One example of this was when Mineta made a crude joke and Iroh took it as if he was insulting his family on the island and almost killed him. If it wasn't for Uraraka explaining what he meant, Mineta would have died. However, for all his faults, they couldn't deny that Iroh was the best at helping them take down Nomus. Missions became easier when he was around, casualties dropped, and new areas were liberated thanks to his help. The Nomus became less and less of a problem over time. Iroh was walking up to UA's main gate as he, along with Todoroki, Uraraka, and Momo returned from a mission. Your skills have been improving, Uraraka, Iroh said. Thanks. It's all thanks to you. To think that kind of training also helped with my quirk. I guess stamina really was my issue, Uraraka said. Iroh nodded. Your quirk is strong, but you lacked the training to bring out your potential, but now you have it. If Aizawa heard you say that, he'd be pissed, Momo said, laughing. He was the one who trained us. Don't get me wrong, his training methods were good, but you can't train everyone the same. Each of you have different abilities, different weaknesses. Besides, I assume because of this war he hasn't had time to properly give you guidance. The group then arrived at the dorms. Rest, you've earned it. Todoroki nodded. A shower sounds amazing right about now. That'll wash away the tightness in my shoulders, Momo said as she rotated her arm around. Couldn't you make yourself some patches for that? Todoroki asked as the two walked away. Iroh and Uraraka watched them leave. Odd to be young, said Uraraka. It seems nice. What does? Iroh asked. Seeing them, you know, in love. Uraraka then looked at Iroh. Have you ever been in love, Iroh? Maybe had a girlfriend? Iroh shook his head. Never, wasn't really interested in it. I mean, if one day I find someone, sure, but who would want to be with me? Uraraka looked away. I would. Did you say something? Iroh asked. You spoke quietly just now. Uraraka blushed. And nothing. I'm going to take a shower. She then took off upstairs. What's wrong with her? Iroh asked himself, as he now stood alone. I can normally read someone's intentions, but I can't with her. What is she thinking? You're so clueless. A voice said from the living room. Iroh turned to find Mina sitting on the couch. For being raised on an island full of women, you sure do know little about us. Well, the women on the island are much different from those in the outside world, Iroh said as he walked over. Do you know what's wrong with Uraraka? I can't tell you. She'd kill me if I told you, Mina said. But don't worry, she'll tell you when the time is right. In the meantime, I can help you. Oh, how so? Iroh's asked. Mina smirked. Come here. I'll tell you what to do. She then leaned in and began to whisper something into Iroh's ear. It's like hunting, you have to wait for the right time to strike. Once you see an opportunity, take it. Do what I tell you and she'll talk. I see. Thank you, Mina. I appreciate the help. With that, Iroh's walked upstairs to change out of his armor. At the same time, Jiro was walking down. What's up with Iroh's? He had a weird look on his face. Oh, don't worry about him. I gave him some advice, Mina said, waving. Jiro raised an eyebrow. What exactly did you say to him? Oh, nothing. I'm just speeding things up, that's all, Mina said. He'll thank me later. Jiro didn't like that, Mina. The next day, Iroh's found himself training with Uraraka. The sound of swords clashing echoed throughout the school. Meeting in the middle, their swords sparked. Iroh's face was calm while Uraraka's was stern. You've been practicing, I see. Uraraka nodded. I have, by myself. Does it show? It does, but Iroh's then kneed Uraraka in the stomach, causing her to hunch over. Dropping her sword, Uraraka gasped for air. You still have several openings. Damn, you could have held back a bit, Uraraka said, holding her stomach. Iroh's put away his sword. Why? Because you're a woman. When it comes to fighting, there are no genders. No one is going to hold back when they are trying to kill you. You fight with everything regardless of who they are. He then reached out his hand. On your feet, we still have training to do. With Iroh's help, Uraraka got to her feet. Can we take a short break? My arms are going numb from the kinetic shock. All right. A short break. With that, Uraraka walked over to a nearby tree and sat up against it. Are you doing all right here, Iroh's? Uraraka asked. Iroh's nodded. I have everything I need. Food, water, a place to sleep. My basic needs are covered. Uraraka shook her head. I don't mean that. I mean, are you comfortable here? Are you enjoying it here? Is more like what I'm asking. I am. I have no reason to complain. Although, I do miss the island sometimes. The smell of the salted wind, the sound of waves crashing. Iroh's smiled. It's almost time for the champion games and the hunt. You mentioned that before? What is that? Uraraka asked. It's a competition meant for everyone on the island to participate if they wish. It's used to determine who is the strongest on the island. We go through trials and face off against each other in one-on-one combat. Once a person has proven themselves, they are granted the chance to face off against Queen Elpis herself, the strongest of the Amazons. Iroh's explained. Although, I was never allowed to participate, due to me being a man and all. That sounds a lot like our sports festival, Uraraka said. So what's the hunt? The hunt is a game we play. We close off a section of the island and let go several beasts into the forest. Those who can kill the most wins. Iroh's explained. But they aren't ordinary beasts. If you aren't careful, they could kill you. But win and your name will go down in history. It's one of the highest honors an Amazon could win. But let me guess, they didn't allow you to participate because you were a guy. Iroh's nodded. That's messed up. They should have let you participate. Iroh's shrugged. I was used to it. Even as a kid, I wasn't allowed to play with others. It's not like they wanted to anyway. Only fillies came around. You know, when I got my first kill, I was so proud that I ran into the city square to show it off. But all I got was scornful looks. Mother was proud, but as for the others, they never cared. All I ever wanted was to be recognized. To actually make a difference, you know. Letting out a sigh, Iroh's scoffed. Let's end practice here. Go rest up. Iroh's then began to walk away, but before he could get far, Uraraka stopped him. Iroh's, wait. He stopped and turned around. You are making a difference. Here. You may not know it, but you are. So, if you'd let me, I want to show you. Let me take you to the safe zones. Safe zone. Iroh's was stunned at what he was looking at. Amazing. Buildings that seemed to scrape the sky. People laughing, smiling, and enjoying themselves. Uraraka walked out in front of him. She was wearing a pink shirt and blue-colored jeans. Welcome to one of our safe zones. It's amazing. Nothing like Ua. It's like there's not a war going on. Iroh's said as he watched people walk by. The people know what's going on, but at least here, they have a chance to live normal lives. Uraraka then grabbed Iroh's by the hand. Come on, let's go enjoy ourselves here. Running through the crowd, Iroh and Uraraka went around to different stores. One was a large shopping mall. There Uraraka introduced Iroh to the wonders of fashion since his was all dated. He then changed into a plain white shirt, green jacket, and black jeans. Coming out of the dressing room, Iroh grabbed the collar of his shirt. These clothes, they're so restrictive. You can't fight in these. Uraraka laughed. That's because they aren't meant to fight in. You look good. Do I? Iroh asked as he still felt restricted. I've never worn anything like this. You should. Come on, let's get you some more outfits, Uraraka said, grabbing more clothes for Iroh to try on. After trying on and purchasing more clothes, Iroh was then dragged across the mall to the arcade. Inside, Iroh was overwhelmed by the sounds and lights flashing around him. What is this place? Some sort of torture chamber? Not quite, it's a place where we can have fun. They have claw machines, bowling, darts, and even dancing. Come on, there's a game in here I know you'd like. Uraraka then took Iroh inside where they came upon a punching bag machine. See that bag hanging there? You're supposed to hit it with all you got. Once you do, a number shows up on the screen. That's your score. Score high enough and you get a prize. Iroh nodded. I see, so this machine tests your strength. So what is this prize? You actually get to pick. Uraraka then pointed to a shelf that was behind the counter. Iroh looked up to see several prizes. Beat the high score and you get to pick. Interesting. Alright, this sounds interesting. Walking up to the machine, Uraraka dropped in a few coins. Oh, looks like we have a new challenger, said the man working behind the counter. Sure you up for this, kid? You look pretty skinny to me. You must be trying to impress your girlfriend here. Uraraka gave the man a look before turning away. Don't listen to him, Iroh. Uraraka, are you sure I can use all of my strength? Iroh questioned. Uraraka smirked. Not sure. What do you say? She asked, looking at the man behind the counter. Give it your best shot. That machine should be able to withstand a punch by All Might himself, the man boasted. You don't even break top 10. Iroh nodded. All right, Uraraka, you might want to stand back a bit. Agreeing, Uraraka took a step back. Seeing the scores on the side, Iroh noticed that the highest was 150,000. I don't know what that number means, but if the man says it can withstand a hit from All Might. Iroh then clenched his fist. Then that means I can go all out, but should I? With one quick motion, Iroh's fist made contact with the bag. Immediately, a shockwave vibrated throughout the arcade. The machine was utterly destroyed as it went flying into the nearby wall and shattered like it was a Lego tower. The man behind the counter looked on in pure shock. That's not possible. How did he? Does that mean I win a prize? Iroh asked, appearing in front of the man. Why yes, yes of course. Pick anyone you want, the man said, his hands trembling in fear. Iroh looked at the prizes and pointed at one, that one. Quickly the man reached for it and handed it over. Congrats on the prize. And don't worry about the machine, I'll fix it. Satisfied, Iroh and Uraraka walked out of the arcade. Well then, that was unexpected, Uraraka said. To think you'd destroy the entire machine with one hit. It was harder than it looked, Iroh said, now holding onto a Kirby plushie. What is this thing? Oh, it's a character from a TV show I used to watch when I was little. He's so cute, Uraraka said. Seeing Uraraka looking at the plushie, he handed it over. Here, take it. Are you sure? Asked Uraraka. Iroh nodded. I have no need for it. Besides, you seem to like it. Consider it a thank you for taking me here. Taking the plushie, Uraraka blushed slightly. Thank you. Think nothing of it. So, now where to? Iroh and Uraraka then spent the rest of the day walking around the safe zone, enjoying the shops, eating food that Iroh found strange but delicious. By the end of the day, Iroh and Uraraka found themselves at the top of an observation tower that overlooked the city. As the sun set, Iroh couldn't help but smile. So you can smile, Uraraka said. Iroh turned to Uraraka. What do you mean? Of course I can. I know that, but lately you haven't. Uraraka explained. And after hearing about what you went through on that island, I wanted to bring you here. To show you that you are making a difference. The people down there may not know it, but they owe their ignorance to people like you. You brought me here, to help me. Iroh took a step towards Uraraka. Thank you. Uraraka blushed as he got closer. Don't mention it. No, really. Without you I would be lost in a world I do not know. You showed me that no matter what happened in the past I can be proud of what I've accomplished now. Iroh stopped in front of Uraraka. Uraraka was now freaking out. It's fine, I just did what anyone would do. She tried to back up but found herself up against the safety rail. On the island we are taught to always repay our debts. Iroh said. I don't have anything of value so let me show you. He then reached out and lifted Uraraka's face by the chin. Iroh's. Mina said to wait and strike when the time is right. I believe now is the perfect time. Iroh said, his lips inching closer to Uraraka's. Mina, she put you up to this. Uraraka's lips began to tremble. Why you should stop, don't. Come, any closer. Closing her eyes Uraraka leaned in. But just as their lips were about to meet, Iroh's twitched and pushed away Uraraka. Uraraka was shocked but even more so when the tip of a spear passed by, centimeters from hitting her head. What was that? Uraraka asked. We were attacked. Iroh said, narrowing his eyes, by someone strong. Damn it, to be caught off guard like this and with no weapon. Is this what you have been doing? Asked a voice from the other end of the observation tower. Iroh's turned. What he saw stunned him. Answer me. Iroh's. Stepping forward was none other than Phillies, Iroh's friend from the island. Phillies. How did you? That's when Iroh's noticed something. Blood. Phillies was wearing her armor, but it wasn't intact, instead it was torn and mangled. Blood ran down her arms and legs, and from a large slash wound from her forehead that forced her to close one eye. She held a sword in one hand and something in her other. Uraraka was shocked to see Phillies in such a state. What happened? Breathing heavily, Phillies turned to Uraraka and pointed her sword toward her. It was your fault. You caused everything. Everything was fine until you came to the island. Now, I'll kill you, for my sisters. Iroh's got in front of Uraraka, explained Phillies. What do you mean? Phillies clenched the sword. Queen Elpis was right about the outside world, about man. All they do is take. Without saying another word Phillies jumped at Uraraka, with the sole intention of killing her. Seeing this Iroh's managed to kick the sword out of Phyllis's hand, but even that wasn't enough to stop her. Knowing that Iroh's would get in her way she decided he needed to be dealt with. As soon as Phillies landed she flexed her leg and with everything she had twisted her body and punched Iroh's in the stomach. The hit sent Iroh's flying down towards the street below, slamming through the roof of a store. People ran in panic and fear as they didn't know what was going on. Groaning in pain Iroh's managed to get to his feet and felt something warm run down his lip. You're such a disappointment Iroh's. Phillies said as she too came crashing onto the roof of the adjacent building and onto the ground. You've gotten soft. Phillies then grabbed her ribs and winced in pain. Phillies, stop. We can't do this. These people are innocent. Iroh's said, trying to reason with her. But that only made Phillies angrier. Innocent. These aren't innocent people, they're the reason. Phillies hung her head. Iroh's noticed Phillies trembling. Phillies, what happened? Snapping her head back up, tears now ran down her face. Our sisters, the island, it's all gone. Iroh's eyes widened. What do you mean gone? Phillies, you're scaring me. It all happened so fast, at first we didn't know what was going on. Phillies said, her voice trembling. We did the best we could to defend the island but those things kept coming, and those powers, oh god those powers. Island of the Amazons. Cleo was up early, standing at a cliff that overlooked the sea. She sighed thinking about Iroh's. I sure hope you're safe Iroh's. Still worried about the boy? Elpis asked, walking up behind her. A mother worries. Cleo answered. He was so small when we found him. The cutest little bundle of joy. And now he's grown, gone. There comes a time in a mother's life where she has to let go of the young, said Elpis. Iroh's is out there finding who he is and what his role is in this world. And I for one can't wait to see what he becomes. Cleo smiled. I'm sure he'll become the greatest leader the outside world has ever known. That is why I named him Iroh's after all. That you did. Now come. The preparation for the games are almost done. Maybe we'll see someone as good as you. Elpis turned around to leave but suddenly stopped. Cleo did as well. My queen, I know, I felt it too. Elpis turned and looked towards the water. Something is coming, something evil. But how? This island is hidden from the outside world. No one should know it even exists, Cleo said. Doesn't matter, Cleo. Head to the city and muster the legions. Elpis ordered. Whistling, she summoned her horse and mounted it. I will face this person. Now, go, that's an order. Rushing down to the beach, Elpis dismounted her horse and walked to the sand. Who are you? The queen asked, stopping a few meters away from the mystery person. This person was tall, wore a suit, and wore what appeared to be a mask over his face that doubled as a respirator. This island, it really is beautiful. I will ask again, who are you? Queen Elpis asked. I have gone by many names in my past, but I go by all for one now. And you are? AFO said as he turned to the queen. I am Elpis, queen of the Amazons. You have violated the rules of this island. As a man you are not allowed to be here. Your punishment will be death. Elpis said, her face stern. AFO smiled. Is this how you treat your guests? No, that doesn't make sense. If memory serves me well, you've had 2 people here. One of them was a man as well. Why didn't you kill him? That is none of your concern. And how do you know about those 2? Elpis asked. I have to thank the girl for that. When she landed on these shores you killed 3 of my nomus, correct? Well, inside of each of my creations I put a small tracker. And well, here I am. AFO said, as his arms extended out. But to think the legendary warriors are real. You Amazons were nothing but myth. Why are you here? Queen Elpis asked. I'm here to sightsee. AFO said, jokingly, but Queen Elpis didn't laugh. Bad joke, it's simple really. In order to take over Japan I need more nomus, and well, the ones I have now aren't the best. But if I used you and your warriors, then I would be able to create an unstoppable army. One even the heroes wouldn't be able to defeat. Especially that boy. Iros, yes, he's been interfering with my plans for far too long. But that ends soon. Once I take all of you, then he will die too. You seek to use us for your own plans. We refuse. We will not let ourselves be tools of your making. Queen Elpis said angrily. We would rather die than let that happen. AFO smirked. That works too. Nomus, dispose of this queen. Suddenly 2 portals opened up beside AFO. From them 2 nomus appeared and ran towards the queen. Elpis didn't move and watched as the 2 monsters got closer. But before they could get within striking range, something came crashing down from atop the cliff. The sound of metal was heard as sand covered the area. You 2 did well, Elpis said. Thank you, my queen, said 2 Amazon warriors, standing beside the bodies of the 2 nomus. This is going to be fun, AFO said, lifting up his arms as more portals began to open up all along the beach. Soon, the entire beach was full of nomus, with even more still on the way. Elpis pulled out her sword. Amazons, she yelled out. The cliffs above her were soon covered by Amazon warriors, each with bows and arrows pointed down. Attack. Letting loose the arrows, the 2 sides engaged in combat. The arrows came flying down, some hitting the nomus in the brain, but most pushed through. Seeing this, the Amazon warriors switched from bows and arrows to swords and spears. In the middle of it all was Queen Elpis swinging her sword alongside her sisters. Slicing the head off one, Elpis looked around and noticed that her sisters were holding their own. Push them back, she ordered. With warriors up in front with shields, the Amazons began to push the nomus to the sea. All the while AFO looked on. They truly do live up to the myths. But times have changed. Nomus, use your quirks. One Amazon was pushing a nomu away when all of a sudden her shield was sliced in 2. Stunned, the Amazon looked up only to have a nomu stab into her gut with a spike that came out of its forearm. Raising the warrior into the air, she gasped and groaned as her blood stained the sand. Once the nomus began to use their quirks, the tide of battle changed. Once in tight, organized formation, the beaches turned into an all-out slaughter. Elpis watched as her sisters were frozen in place and shattered like glass. She watched as another had her arm bitten into. The Amazons were losing. My queen! My queen! A warrior yelled, trying to get Elpis's attention. We must get you out of here. I will not abandon my sisters, Elpis yelled, as she sliced the legs off of a nomu before decapitating it. The warrior who was speaking to the queen tried to argue, but before she could get another word out, a massive boulder came flying in, crushing her. No. Elpis yelled out. Damn it, we lost the beach. Amazons, back to the city. Ordering the retreat, those who remained jumped back up the cliff as others covered them with arrows. Making it back atop the cliff, Elpis looked down and locked eyes with AFO. You can run all you like, Your Majesty. But the results will be the same. The end of the Amazons. You want our lives? Then come take them, but you will find we will not go down easily. Elpis yelled as she wiped the blood off her face. Such a proud race. Let me show you what humans can do. Reaching down, AFO touched the ground with his hand. What is he doing? Asked an Amazon. I don't know, but be ready. There is no telling what he can or will do. Queen Elpis said, just as the ground underneath her feet began to shake. It started off light, but suddenly it became intense. Those standing could barely stay upright as the cliff began to break. Fall back, someone yelled, but the shaking only intensified. Soon, the city began to crumble. Buildings, shops, and medical centers fell, and became nothing but piles of stone. But it was far from over. Appearing and slicing directly through the city was a canyon that went down so deep that light couldn't reach the bottom. The chasm swallowed entire legions of Amazon warriors. Some of the warriors standing on the cliff fell to their deaths, while others still in the city were crushed. Soon, the battlefield was silent. The queen then bursted through a stone slab that had fallen on her. The earth moved. He has the power to do even that. She turned around and saw that her city was gone. Only the palace remained standing, but it suffered major damage. Elpis. Someone yelled out. The queen turned to find Cleo. Are you hurt? I'm fine. Elpis said, look at what happened to our city. There's no time, we need to head to the palace. We can fortify our defense there. Cleo said, helping the queen to her feet. But I can't, they need me here. Elpis said as Nomus began to appear. One ran at them, but before they could get close, 2 Amazon warriors tackled it to the ground. My queen, you must go. We will hold them off. Queen Elpis clenched her fists, but to run, like some coward. Stay here and die, and those who died will have died for nothing. Cleo argued, we must go. With little choice and with her heart heavy, Elpis nodded and began to run towards the palace with Cleo in tow. Passing through the destroyed city and past the corpse of her sisters, Elpis made it to the palace. Fortify the entrance. Those who can still fight, grab what you can. Phillies, Cleo called out. I'm here, Phillies said, appearing from the shadows. We need you to bring me my old armor. Elpis said she had it in storage. Phillies nodded and went off to retrieve the armor. Elpis, we need to, but as Cleo looked at Elpis, she noticed a rather distraught look on her face. It's over, she said, her voice quiet and small. My sisters are dying, so much death. Cleo grabbed Elpis by the shoulders. Elpis, you need to snap out of it. You need to get ready for those things outside. Suddenly the doors to the palace were pushed in slightly. Several Amazons went over and pushed the door, holding it as the Nomus tried to break in. Damn it, hold them, Cleo yelled out. Cleo. Your armor, yelled Phillies as she gave Cleo her old armor. Good, now hold them off as long as you can. Nodding, Phillies ran towards the entrance. Cleo then began to put on her armor. To think I would wear this once again. After putting on the final piece of her armor, Cleo looked at Elpis. I'd never thought I'd get to see you donning that armor once more. But it doesn't matter anymore, your strength is gone. You can't defeat those things outside. Kneeling in front of Elpis, Cleo put down her weapon. You're right, the strength I once had is gone and I will most likely die. But if it's just for 1 minute, I am still the strongest Amazon on this island. Besides, I still have my pride. What about you? Elpis looked up and saw Cleo with her hand out. After a moment, Elpis let out a small laugh. Don't get ahead of yourself, Cleo. You're second only to me. Taking Cleo's hand, the queen got to her feet. Cleo smiled. We'll see. Come, we don't have much time. Taking up her weapons once again, both the queen and Cleo stood beside a dozen of their sisters, ready for when the palace was breached. Just then Phillies appeared. We held them off as long as we could. You did great. Seal the throne room, ordered Cleo as the doors of the throne room were closed. At the main entrance, several Nomus had torn down the door and began to flood inside. Those who were outside of the throne room fell defending the palace. Some took down several Nomus before being struck down themselves. Hearing their sisters die just beyond the room, many of those inside began to waver. "Calm yourself, sisters," Elpis said. "This is what we Amazons live for. Be glad knowing that once this is over, we will be with our sisters once again." The stone doors of the throne room then crumbled as several Nomus began swarming in. Phillies was the first to attack, slicing the head off of one before kicking it down and opening its stomach. The others rushed in to help her. They cut down more Nomus, but eventually they too would fall. The Amazons fought long and hard. It was now down to Elpis, Cleo, and Phillies. The three kept retreating deeper and deeper into the palace. With blood running down their wounds, the three found themselves up a tower, where the mirror they used to send Iros away was. The room was large, and had a large open area where you could see the entire island. Slamming the door, Phillies slid down it and sat down exhausted, and with a large wound on her side. "Let me see," Cleo said as she carefully inspected the wound. Phillies winced in pain as Cleo checked. "It's deep, and you're losing a lot of blood. Don't worry, you'll be fine." Phillies smiled. "Don't lie, Sister Cleo. We both know it's only a matter of time." "Worry about the queen," Phillies said as she pushed herself up. Elpis was looking outside and watched the destruction. "Forgive me, sisters. I brought this upon us. No, this is man's world doing. If we didn't save Uraraka, none of this would have happened." "Enough. Blaming the girl won't help us. Right now we need to come up with something, anything to get us." But as Cleo was talking, she suddenly felt a sharp pain from her chest. "Cleo," Elpis yelled out as she ran to check on her friend. "You don't have the strength anymore. You have to stay down. You'll die if you keep this up." But Cleo refused. "And no, I'm not dying yet. I still have to see Iros again. I won't disappoint him, not again." With the injuries she sustained, Cleo was barely able to stand, much less fight. That's when Elpis got an idea. The mirror, she rushed over to it. "It's broken, remember? It was shattered after Iros crossed over to the other side," Cleo said, standing up with the help of her sword. "I'm aware, but it's our only chance now. If I can use it one more time, I can get us out of here," Cleo said as she messed around with the mirror. Just then the door to the room they were in was pushed in but didn't open. Both Cleo and Phillies readied themselves. "Whatever you're doing, do it fast." Seconds later a beam of energy shot through the door. Cleo was able to deflect it with her sword, but more kept flying at them. The two Amazons did their best to deflect the shots, but Cleo wasn't able to keep. A beam passed through her stomach and came out her back. "No," Phillies yelled as she rushed over. "It's done," Elpis yelled out. "With this we can escape." However, that's when red and black tendrils came from the door and wrapped both Elpis and Phillies up. Now, you wouldn't just leave a guest here alone, would you?" AFO asked as he floated into the room. Feeling their bones crushed, both Amazons screamed out in pain as their armor cracked. "Why, you bastard," Elpis grunted out. "I'll kill you." AFO looked at the queen. "Your reign ends here, O noble queen." Tightening his tendrils, AFO smirked as he crushed Queen Elpis. Cleo and Phillies looked on in horror as Elpis's head flopped down as blood ran down her lip. "No," Phillies yelled with tears in her eyes as she struggled in vain to free herself. "Ah, don't cry, little one," AFO said. "You'll be joining her soon." Phillies then felt the tendrils tighten, but before it could crush her, the sound of metal was heard. Finding herself on the floor, Phillies saw that the tendrils were cut. "Phillies," a voice said to her. The young Amazon looked back to see Cleo. "Get to the mirror. Find Iros, and give him this." She then handed her a small amulet. "Make sure he knows that I loved him to the bitter end. And that I'm sorry for what I did to him." "You aren't going anywhere," AFO said as he sent out more tendrils. But as they approached, Cleo simply sliced through them. "What is this?" Grabbing her chest plate armor, Cleo ripped it off of herself and threw it aside. "You killed my best friend. I'll have your head for that." Pushing off the ground with enough force to crack it, Cleo rushed AFO at such speeds that Phillies had difficulty tracking her. Appearing suddenly in front of the villain, she threw a punch. But AFO simply lifted his hand and activated a shield quirk around him. But much to his surprise, the shield shattered, allowing Cleo to get a hit in, right at the villain's face. The impact shattered the mask AFO had on, revealing his disfigured face. "You bitch," he yelled out, but he didn't even have enough time to process what happened when Cleo once again appeared underneath and delivered a powerful blow to his stomach. Left gasping for air and with blood running down AFO's nose, he couldn't believe it. How? Grabbing his head, Cleo slammed it into the ground. "Because you are a man, while I am an Amazon." Over and over again Cleo slammed AFO's face into the ground. But this was a floor in a tower and it soon began to crack. Ultimately the floor they were on gave way, allowing Cleo to drop AFO. Watching as he fell, Cleo fell to her knees. "Cleo!" Phyllis yelled as she ran to her side. "You got him." "And not exactly. He's still alive," Cleo said. "He's going to get back up. We need to leave, now." With Phyllis's help, Cleo got to her feet and slowly walked over to the mirror. Cleo stumbled along the way, but she eventually leaned up against the mirror. "Come on, Cleo. We're almost there." Cleo's vision began to blur as she felt her strength leave her body. "I can't." "Yes, you can. Come on. You'll get to see Iros again." Hearing this, Cleo nodded and pushed through the pain. "Good, come on. Just touch the mirror." Cleo extended out her arm and was about to touch the broken mirror when blood suddenly splattered across it. Cleo's eyes widened. Phyllis turned around slowly with horror written on her face. Barely able to react in time, Cleo was struck in the side, ripping out a chunk. "You are strong, Amazon, maybe even stronger than All Might, but your body couldn't keep up. If you were in your prime, this fight would have ended differently, but I have evolved. While you Amazons never developed quirks, I stole them," AFO said as he stood behind Cleo. With blood running down and pooling onto the floor, Cleo knew she didn't have long now. Grabbing Phyllis, Cleo struggled to get the words out. "Find Iros, and make sure he knows what happened," she said. "No, I won't leave you," Phyllis said, wanting to stay. "I won't abandon my sisters." Cleo smiled, proud at what Phyllis said. "That's exactly why you should leave. Make sure our legacy lives on. And tell Iros I'm sorry." With that, Cleo flung Phyllis through the mirror. "No," Phyllis yelled as she disappeared, but there was just enough time to see Cleo charge AFO one final time. With Iros couldn't believe it. "And no, you lie." Phyllis tossed the item she had in her other hand. "Cleo told me to give this to you." The item slid across the floor and stopped in front of Iros. Reaching out, his eyes widened. This is Mom's. It was a medallion she got for serving the queen long ago, and this is blood." "It's her blood," Phyllis said. "She's dead, along with everyone else." Iros hung his head. "She's dead because of that girl. She brought that man to us. So she will die." Iros snapped his head up. "That's not what Elpis and Mom would want." Phyllis stopped. "Maybe not, but it's what I want." "And if I say no?" Iros asked, getting to his feet. "You know our ways, Iros. Once we've set our sights on something, there's only one thing that would stop us," Phyllis said. "Are you prepared to do that?" "If it means saving her." Iros then got into a fighting stance. "Yes." Phyllis clenched her fist. "Oh, I get it. She's the reason why you've gotten soft. I bet you didn't even leave the island to help these people. You left because of her. You're no Amazon. You're just like every other man." Jumping at Iros, Phyllis drew her sword. Iros could do little without a weapon to defend himself with. He jumped back and narrowly dodged the tip of Phyllis's blade. "Damn it, I need a weapon." "Iros!" someone called out. The young Amazon looked over to find Momo and Todoroki. "Catch!" Momo then threw something towards Iros. Phyllis appeared once again, her sword pointed right at Iros. Thrusting her blade forward, she was inches from piercing Iros when the sound of metal clashing was heard. The shockwave the two created was enough to flatten the buildings they were near. Momo and Todoroki were almost blown away, if not thanks to an ice prison created by Todoroki. "Please, Phyllis, stop this. I don't want to hurt you," Iros said as he held back Phyllis's blade with a katana. The safe zone was in chaos. Buildings crumbled and fell, civilians ran through the streets trying to escape, and all the while Iros and Phyllis were fighting. Their battle was tearing up the city. Uraraka had made it down from the observation tower and into the chaos below. "Everyone, head to the bunkers. You'll be safe there," she yelled out as everyone ran by her. "Uraraka!" a voice yelled out from the crowd. She turned to find Momo and Todoroki running up to her. "You guys, I didn't know you were in the safe zone. We were here to watch a movie, but ended up in the middle of this. Todoroki explained. What happened? Who's that girl fighting Iroh's? It's Phillies, an Amazon from the island. Uraraka said as a big explosion erupted a few blocks away. Those two are going to destroy the safe zone, Momo said. We have to do something. I can't even see them, they're moving too fast. We wouldn't be able to stop them. Todoroki said as he shielded his eyes from the heat. Why is the girl doing this? It's my fault, said Uraraka. I brought AFO to them, and now, Phillies wants me dead. Momo was confused. All for one. What does he? But before Momo could say anything else, the ground underneath them shook. We'll worry about that later. Right now we need to get those people to safety. Especially you, Uraraka. If Phillies is an Amazon and wants to kill you, we need to get out of here. I won't run, said Uraraka. Maybe I can talk to her. Suddenly something came flying from a building onto the street a few feet away. The object broke the asphalt. Damn it. She really isn't holding back. It was Iroh's. Standing back up, the others noticed that he was bleeding from several cuts on his arms, legs, and chest. Uraraka saw him and ran towards him. Iroh's. The Amazon put up his hand. Stop. You need to leave. If Phillies sees you. It's too late, I already see her, said Phillies, appearing behind Uraraka. Putting her sword to her neck, Phillies turned to Iroh's. This girl is why you left us. This girl is why our sisters are dead. This girl is why your mother is dead, Iroh's. So I ask you this once, do you still wish to protect her? Iroh's said nothing. He hesitated to answer and Uraraka noticed. Iroh's. See, he doesn't care about you. And now you'll die knowing that. Phillies was about to slice Uraraka's neck when ice suddenly covered her, freezing her in place. Seeing a chance, Iroh's pulled Uraraka away. Get her out of here, Iroh said as the ice around Phillies began to crack. Take her somewhere safe, anywhere. Iroh's then jumped towards the frozen Phillies and with the butt of the blade he landed a hit on her stomach, both shattering the ice and sending the Amazon into several buildings. Stopping in front of the building, Iroh's looked through the hole in the wall. Suddenly, Phillies came flying out. Iroh's raised the sword and blocked the strike directed at him. You still fight to protect her, even after what I told you. The two locked swords. This isn't right, Phillies, please. Think about our sisters. Iroh's was then punched across the face so hard that as he slid back, the ground underneath was torn. Don't you dare talk about them, Phillies yelled. You lost the right to call yourself an Amazon when you left the island. Digging his feet into the ground, Iroh stopped himself. Blood then dripped onto the floor from his mouth. Iroh's barely had enough time to look up when Phillies appeared with her sword. Lifting his own up, Iroh's parried the blade. With a chance, Iroh's countered and aimed for Phyllis's neck, but stopped as the tip touched her skin. The two looked at each other. See, I told you. Soft. Iroh's then felt pain coming from his shoulder. Looking to his right, he noticed Phyllis's blade going through his shoulder. Any one of our sisters would have taken the chance you were just given. Even greater proof that you aren't one of us. Pulling her blade free, Phillies kicked Iroh's across the face, sending him towards a line of cars and crushing them. Coming to a stop, Iroh's groaned in pain as he grabbed his now bleeding shoulder. Damn it. Get up, ordered Phillies, appearing in front of him. But Iroh's just looked at her. I said, get up. Reaching down, Phillies grabbed Iroh's by the shirt and picked him off the ground and looked at him, so weak. Iroh's noticed the blood running down the wounds on Phillies. Phillies, you need help. Letting him go, Phillies turned around and punched Iroh's in the stomach, sending him flying through several more buildings. I'm not the one who needed help. The buildings fell around the civilians as some ran for their lives. Coming to a stop in the middle of a road, he noticed the building in front of him falling. He then saw a piece of building was going to flatten a family. Without thinking, Iroh's got up and saved the family from being crushed. Holding the slab up, he smiled. Go, I got this. Get out of here. The family bowed and quickly got to safety. Iroh's was about to toss the slab away when Phillies came crashing down from the sky. Punching through the slab, Iroh's was taken to the ground. Now standing over him, Phillies began to punch him over and over again. You care more about these people than the ones who raised you, Phillies yelled as she punched him in the face. You've known these people for a few weeks. Cleo raised you. nurtured you, and you just left. Irose's head slammed into the ground with enough force to break it. What have these people given you? Punching him once again, Irose's head bounced off the ground. Nothing. Finally stopping, Phyllis's hand was dripping with blood. We needed you, and you weren't there, she said as tears ran down her face. Phyllis. A voice yelled out. The young Amazon looked up to see none other than Uraraka. That's when rage returned to Phyllis's eyes. You, suddenly appearing in front of Uraraka. Phyllis grabbed her by the neck and lifted her off the ground. You brought him to us. Uraraka struggled to breathe. I didn't know he would find the island. I'm sorry. Phyllis tightened her grip around Uraraka's neck. Sorry? You're sorry? My entire family is dead. Everyone I ever cared about is dead. And you're sorry. I know what it's like to lose those who you love, Uraraka said, gasping for air. This hate, I know it well. It's like a poison. Don't let it consume you. Look around. This was someone's home. Don't let others suffer because of you. No, Phyllis said, pulling her sword free. This isn't my fault, it's yours. This country of yours, it deserves to be destroyed. Maybe then you'll know what it's like to lose everything. Phyllis thrusted her sword forward, but right as it was going to pierce Uraraka's abdomen, someone caught the blade. I said no, it was Irose. Bruised and bleeding, he somehow stood up. I won't let you kill her. Throwing Uraraka to the side, Phyllis turned to Irose and pointed to him with the tip of her blade. You have to decide now, Irose. Are you an Amazon, or are you a man from the outside world? You can't be both. Whatever happens next depends on your answer. Will you fight beside me, or against me? Seeing the katana by his feet, Irose looked at it and picked it up, much to Phyllis's dismay. Your mother would be so disappointed. Irose still had a bit of strength left, but his body was slowing down and fast. Whatever he was going to do, he needed to do it fast. The two Amazons once again traded sword swings. Jumping around the city, those around them could only see the sparks of metal on metal as they flew by over rooftops. Once the sparks stopped, the building they were on was utterly destroyed. The two took their fight to the street where as their swords met they disappeared, leaving behind a shockwave that broke the ground underneath where they were standing. Why are you fighting so hard to protect her? Phyllis asked as she landed on the side of a building and pushed off, shattering the wall. Is it lust that drives you? Blocking her blade, Irose slid the blade down and headbutted Phyllis. How dare you? Irose yelled. You question my integrity. Gritting her teeth, Phyllis clocked Irose across the face. You are a man. It's in your nature. Just like it was in your nature to abandon us. Now pissed, Irose grabbed Phyllis by the waist. Lifting her up, he flipped her over and slammed her head first into the ground. I didn't abandon you. While on the ground, Phyllis kicked Irose in the knee before grabbing her sword and slashing down. Irose moved back but was still cut by the blade. I left to find out who I am. Phyllis then threw her sword at Irose, to which he grabbed in mid-air and tossed it aside. And look at where that has led you. Phyllis said as she jumped into the air and stomped down. Irose jumped back as the ground was upended from Phyllis's dropkick. You're just a shell of a man, with no place to call home, no family to run back to, and no purpose. But I have a purpose. I'm going to kill that girl to avenge our sisters. While in the air, Phyllis jumped towards Irose and grabbed him by the ankle. Slamming his body into the ground, Irose spit out blood as he bounced off it. Grabbing his ankle once again, Phyllis then spun around and threw Irose with everything she had into a building. The walls didn't stand a chance as Irose crashed through one after another. The buildings began to fall. Finally slamming into one final wall, Irose came to a stop, as blood ran down his head and arms. Irose! A voice yelled out to him. With blood blurring his vision, Irose looked to his left to find Uraraka. Why you? Leave, she's going to kill you. We'll worry about that later. Right now we need to get you out of here, Uraraka said, as she helped Irose up and gave him a shoulder to lean on. They only got a few feet away when Irose was kicked in the back. Irose! Uraraka turned around only to find Phyllis. I would worry about yourself now, Phyllis said as she reached out. But that's when Uraraka noticed something was different. Her hand was trembling. Seeing the blood drip down from underneath her mangled armor, Uraraka knew what was wrong. Phyllis, you're injured. We need to get you help. But the Amazon refused to listen. I don't need help, not from you. Raising her hand into the air, Phillies backhanded Uraraka, sending her to the ground. You took Iroh's away from us, from me. On the ground Uraraka grabbed her face. I didn't take him away, he came voluntarily. You lie. Iroh's acted differently, you charmed him, manipulated him. The Irohs I know wouldn't have fallen for your sorcery. With her blade in her left hand Phillies pulled it back. With your death Irohs will be free and my sisters avenged. Thrusting her sword down Uraraka watched as the blade came thundering down towards her. Phillies, yelled Irohs as he came in flying towards Phillies. A loud boom echoed throughout the city. Both Amazons now stood face to face, looking each other in the eyes. Phillies smiled. How many wins does that make now? Tears ran down Iroh's face. Look at you, crying, even after I tried to kill you. Why? Because I still care about you Phillies, even now. Iroh said. I didn't have to be like this, we could have talked. You know we couldn't have. Phillies said as blood ran down her mouth. But this is okay. I'll be with our sisters. Iroh looked down. His sword had pierced Phyllis's heart. The tip of the blade stuck out of her back dripping blood. Besides, I never would have won. Not with you still wearing that. Phillies motioned towards the necklace around Iroh's neck. You knew? Iroh asked. Phillies nodded. I did. It was one of two things Queen Elpis made to counter you. The first was that necklace. It suppresses your power. The second thing was me. I was born from the very earth itself and trained to kill you if need be. I was using you. Cleo knew but she thought it would be nice if you had someone around your age to keep you company. Shut up. Iroh yelled. You are not just some object. You are my friend. We laughed, played, hunted, fished, and raced together. So don't you dare call yourself a thing. Now tears began to form in Phyllis's eyes. Iroh, thank you. Dropping her sword, Phillies reached out and touched Iroh's face. Avenge us. Find the man responsible for killing us. Swear to me. Iroh nodded. I swear I will. I'll carve out his heart and send him down to the deepest parts of the eternal flame. Good, good. Feeling the life in her body fade, Phillies knew she had little time left. Then it's time for you to stop holding back. I, Phillies, Amazon warrior and guardian of the Queen hereby now release you from the shackles placed on you. Slowly, Phillies reached down and grabbed the necklace around Iroh's neck. Live for us Iroh. Closing her eyes Phillies let out one final sigh as she passed on. With a heavy heart Iroh pulled out the sword and held Phillies in his arm. Clenching his fist Iroh buried his face into her chest and fell to his knees. Rog hhhhhhhhhh. Having been blown away from the shockwave, Uraraka appeared from underneath a pile of rubble. Grabbing her arm she looked up to see Iroh holding Phillies. She made her way towards him and tried to reach out, Iroh, but her hand never reached him. Don't touch me, he yelled out, making Uraraka flinch. Getting to his feet and still holding Phillies the grief-stricken Amazon turned his back on Uraraka. The outside world has taken everything from me. My mother, my friend, my sisters, my home, all gone. I should have seen it sooner, they were just trying to help me. But I see now, it was a mistake coming to Japan. I was a fool for wanting answers. He then turned his head and glanced at Uraraka. His eyes filled with hate but with tears running down them. I wish you never came to the island. I wish I had never met you. Uraraka's eyes widened. With that, Iroh began to walk away. Uraraka could do nothing but hang her head in shame as she knew that both him and Phillies were right. She was partially responsible for the deaths of people Iroh cared for. The cries for help echoed throughout the now destroyed safe zone. What was meant to be a beacon of hope for Japan turned to nothing but a pile of scrap and concrete. Fires raged on as the sun's light began to give way to darkness. Minutes later the heroes arrived. Very few were stationed in the city, and those who were didn't stand a chance against the two Amazons. Those who had any chance were on the front lines. So they focused on saving as many as they could, but even then there were casualties. By the next morning a total of 54 people were dead, countless others injured. There were millions of dollars worth of property damage, and the morale of those in the safe zones fell. Morning. The atmosphere on campus was grim. Nezu, All Might, and Aizawa all stood in the principal's office and watched the news report on yesterday's events. Any idea where Iroh could be? Nezu asked. We have every available hero looking for him, but so far nothing, Aizawa explained. To think a fight between those two caused this much damage. It's almost unimaginable if it wasn't for the fact that it just happened, All Might said. And that was when they were injured. Imagine what they would have done if they weren't. Aizawa said, not wanting to think of that scenario. Nezu brought his paws to his forehead. And what of Uraraka? She was present when it happened. Did she say anything about where he would go? No, he apparently just walked away with that girl in his arms. Aizawa explained. But she did say the reason why she attacked. Apparently AFO attacked Irose's home island and killed everyone on it. The girl who appeared tried to kill Uraraka as reparation for leading him to their island. They blame her for exposing the Amazons to our problems. I see, and where is Uraraka now? Nezu asked. Held up in her dorm, she refuses to leave. All Might sighed, she blames herself. But why would AFO do that? Aizawa questioned. There was no real strategy for it, unless, oh no. What is it? All Might asked, concerned. He's going to use the bodies of the Amazons to create Nomus. The other's eyes widened. If the Amazons were even a fraction as strong as Iroh's, then they would turn into absolute monsters. Sweat appeared on the number 1 hero's forehead. We have to find out where they're creating the Nomus. If AFO manages to create even a single one of them, it could spell the end of Japan and the world. The three then sat around talking about what they should do from now on. When Midnight ran into the room, we have trouble. UA's main entrance, it was something out of a movie. Most of the teachers laid groaning in pain on the floor. All Might was the first to arrive on the scene and checked on the others. What happened here? Present Mike spoke. The kid, he came back. The dorms, he's heading to the dorms. All Might snapped his head up and looked towards the dorms. Help is on the way, I'll go see what he's doing. Rushing over to the dorms, All Might slid to a stop and noticed Iroh's was about to walk in. Iroh's, wait. Iroh's stopped just short of entering the building, but something was different. All Might noticed the aura around Iroh's had changed. It was dark. What happened yesterday? Where did you go? And why are you here? That doesn't concern you. Iroh's said, his voice cold and emotionless. What I do is my business. As for why I'm here, simple, I'm here to get my things. I plan on leaving. Leaving? And do what? All Might asked. Iroh's turned and looked at the number 1 hero, to kill all for one. He's serious, All Might thought. Kill all for one, you make it sound easy. It would be easy. Iroh's said, much to All Might's surprise. How would you find him? Do you even know where to look? All Might asked, his concern growing. Iroh's said nothing. You should stay here, we can find him together. No, Iroh's said simply. You'd only get in my way. All Might flinched, but still, we can't risk you going wild in another city. We can't let you just go. Iroh's narrowed his eyes. So, do you think you could stop me? All Might didn't respond. I'll make this simple, All Might. I am going to kill all for one. I don't need help, nor do I want it. I do feel sorry for the innocents that died in the safe zone, but that was not my fault. Iroh's looked at the dorm building. That was the result of someone here. Now if you wouldn't mind, I need to get my stuff. Iroh's turned around to walk into the dorms but was stopped by a hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry, son, but I can't let you. I know what you're going through. You just lost people dear to you. You need time to grieve. You know? Iroh's turned around rapidly and swung his arm. All Might was taken by surprise as Iroh's fist hit him across the face, sending him flying across the yard. You don't know a damn thing. Now stay out of my way. I don't want to kill you too. Groaning in pain, All Might wiped blood off of his lip. He wasn't kidding when he said that he was holding back last time. Seconds later, Iroh's appeared from the dorms, now donning his armor, his sword at his hip, his shield on his back. He looked at All Might. I'll do what you can't. So if you value your own life and the life of others, leave me alone. Right now, Ua is neutral in my eyes. Don't give me a reason to destroy what you've built. For now I have more pressing matters to attend to, but once I finish you would be wise to warn everyone. Calmly Iroh's began to walk towards the entrance. Once he took a step outside the gate, he disappeared in the blink of an eye. Aizawa soon caught up to All Might. Where did he go? He's gone, said All Might, picking himself off the ground. We need to warn everyone about Iroh's. He's on a crusade. A crusade? For what? Aizawa asked. To kill all for one. Beach. The waves crashed onto the beach as the sun began to set. The sound of footsteps on the sand were heard. It was Iroh's, holding the body of Phillies, her body wrapped from the neck down with a fine red cloth. He walked to the shoreline where he crafted a makeshift raft. Gently placing her down on the raft, tears began to run down Iroh's face. I'm sorry, Phillies. I'm sorry I wasn't there for you, for our sisters. While I was here you were suffering. Leaning down, Iroh's keyed Phillies on the forehead, but you can rest now. Resting Phyllis's sword upon her body, Iroh's then covered her face with the cloth. And know that I will kill those responsible, I swear on my life that I will. Walking back on the beach, Iroh's grabbed a torch that was lit and walked back to the raft. Setting the surrounding edges on fire, he then pushed the raft. Slowly and surely the raft began to drift towards the sea as the flames grew. Iroh stood in place on the sand with waves crashing into him and watched the raft. The raft soon disappeared from view. That's when Iroh fell to his knees. Cleo, mother, I'm so sorry. I was selfish, I shouldn't have left you alone. I promised to return, to see you again, but now I'll never get the chance. As Iroh kneeled on the sand, he looked up with an angry expression on his face. I thought I told All Might to tell the others to leave me alone. Especially when it comes to you. The person stopped a few steps behind Iroh. I just came to talk. I do not wish to hear you apologize. Save your breath. Leave. I won't ask again. Iroh said, his anger growing. Iroh, please. But before the person could get another word out, the tip of a sword appeared in front of them. Uraraka fell to the sand. Iroh now had his sword pointed right in between Uraraka's eyes. Do you think I won't kill you? With fear in her eyes, Uraraka spoke. I know what it's like to lose the ones closest to you. I know your pain, Iroh. Iroh gripped his sword tighter. Shut up. Uraraka continued to talk. Come back to Ua. We can help each other. I can help you find All for One. I said, shut up. Iroh yelled out, raising his sword and bringing it down. The area was then covered in a sand cloud. It slowly dissipated, revealing the blade had hit the sand beside Uraraka. However, Iroh didn't miss. Blood then ran down Uraraka's face as a cut was shown down her cheek. I will not fall for your words again. You dare come here, telling me that you know what I'm going through. Did someone come to your home, save them from dying, only to have them bring death to the only family you've known? All for One may have been the one to kill them, but your part in this is just the same. You brought war to our shores, exposed my sisters to powers beyond their understanding. You say you understand, but how would you feel if I go to Ua and kill everyone there? Uraraka's eyes widened. Why you wouldn't I? It would be the same, you've shown me where it is. Iroh said, his expression dark. It would be so easy too. Imagine, your friends, your teachers, those civilians, all dead because of you. But they have nothing to do with this, Uraraka argued. Just like my sisters, Iroh said. Just like mother. They had nothing to do with this war, yet they are now dead, while you still live. Victims, in a war they didn't ask for and one you brought. Uraraka tried to speak but the words simply wouldn't come out, but don't worry, Ua will stay standing, for now. Iroh said, lowering his sword. As long as they stay out of my way I will let them stay. Now listen closely, I never want to see you again. Consider yourself lucky I don't kill you now. Whatever feelings I had for you are gone. Get in my way and I will treat you as an enemy. Last chance to leave. Quickly getting to her feet, Uraraka turned and began to walk away. Getting a few feet away she suddenly stopped. Tell me, do you wish I died on that beach? Iroh didn't even hesitate. Yes. Uraraka hung her head, as tears ran down her face. I see. Now alone once again Iroh grabbed his sword and cut his palm, causing blood to spill. I'll kill them all. All for One took everything from me, so I will take everything from him. That I swear, as the last Amazon. Now standing on a path that leads to the beach, Uraraka stopped. Are you all right? Asked Mina, as the entirety of Class 1A stood in front of her. Phillies was right. Uraraka said. I'm the one who brought All for One to the island. I'm the one responsible for killing everyone he's cared about. The girls went over to hug Uraraka as she wept. Aizawa, who was nearby, looked at the beach. What's our next move? Asked Midnight. For now we leave him be, said Aizawa. Approaching him now would mean making an enemy out of him. And that's the last thing we want. Can he do it? Midnight asked. Can he really kill all for one? Aizawa nodded. He can, but how many innocent lives will die in order for Iroh's to get his way? Morning. The class had gotten back to their dorms for the night to get some rest. The sun was barely rising but one was already up. Uraraka was down by the track practicing her swing. She still had the sword Iroh's gave her, but now the blade felt heavy. Tired, Uraraka decided to take a break and sit on the floor. Uraraka couldn't sleep. She spent the whole night thinking about what Iroh's told her. As she rested, Sue suddenly appeared. Ochako, you need to come see this. Hearing the urgency in Sue's voice, Uraraka quickly followed Sue back to the dorms. Once inside she noticed that everyone was looking at the TV. That's just impossible, right? Questioned Mineta. Who could have done something like that? Kirishima asked. Uraraka walked over to the TV. Her eyes widened. On the screen a reporter that was flying over a city was speaking. This is just an unbelievable scene. This city that was swarming with Nomus last night have been completely annihilated. As you can see the Nomus have been killed, and oh my god, Yuko, get a zoom in. The camera zoomed in as it showed the carnage below. Nomus missing arms, legs, and heads all piled up in the city center. This is something out of a horror movie. But who could have done this? The reporter then got a communication through her earpiece. What's that? She yelled. Reports are coming in that 4 more cities have been liberated. All with the same scene as this one. There are also reports coming in that a boy is the one responsible for this. Descriptions say he wears armor and carries around a sword, just like the boy responsible for the attack on the safe zones. What does this mean? Is the boy our savior, or our demise? Whoever did this just did something that would have taken us months if not years to do, Mina said, shocked at what she was seeing. It was Iroh's, said Uraraka. Iroh's did that. There's no way. I knew he was strong, but to do that. He has to be stronger than All Might. Kaminari said as his eyes were glued to the screen. But why? Questioned Momo. Why would he leave just to do this? He's sending a message, answered Uraraka. Not just to All for One, but to us as well. I get it. This is his way of telling us to get out of his way or we might end up like them. Sue said, understanding what Iroh's was trying to convey. To hell with that. Bakugo said from the back. This guy thinks he could just barge in and run this. I don't care how strong he is, if he's not careful he's going to get someone killed. So what, are you going to stop him? After he mopped the floor with you last time? Questioned Jiro. You've seen what he could do, think you can stop him? No, not yet. Aizawa said, walking into the dorms. For now we wait. Let him calm down a bit, he'll come around. And if he doesn't? Asked Uraraka. Aizawa sighed. I don't know, hope for the best I guess. But right now we need to move. We've been tasked to the cities he's freed. Secure the area and wait for backup. You'll be split up into teams and designated a city. Now go get change, we leave in 10. Nodding, the class went off to go get change. Well, all for Uraraka. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. What's wrong? Uraraka grabbed her arm. It's just what Iroh said to me last night. I don't think I should be out there right now, I'm too distracted. Aizawa took a knee in front of Uraraka and placed a hand on her shoulder. I know this might be difficult, but people need you right now. But put it aside for now, we'll have time to talk about this later. Right now focus on helping others. With that, Uraraka walked upstairs to her room to change. Unknown location. Walking through the halls of a warehouse was Shigaraki, All for One's right-hand man. Coming upon a door, it slid open. Once inside, the sound of machines were heard. Master, I bring news, he said, stopping behind a chair. The Nomus from 5 cities have been wiped out. With the attack on the island, we lost about 40% of our available high-grade Nomus. This only makes our situation worse. But a hand simply waved Shigaraki off. Those cities were nothing to us. Let them have them, we have bigger plans to deal with. Besides, we can always make more. Master, but the bodies of the Amazons have proven to be more resilient than we thought. Only about a third of them have been successfully turned. It's simply not enough, Shigaraki said. Not enough, you say? Quality over quantity Shigaraki. The results will soon speak for themselves, and I get the feeling these new Nomus will be the key to us winning this war. AFO said as he smiled. But he soon found himself coughing. Groaning, he sat back down on his chair as he wore a hospital breathing mask. Master, are you all right? Shigaraki asked. I'll be fine, but that woman nearly killed me. She was on death's door, and yet she found the strength to almost put me down. AFO was currently being healed by machines. His fight with Cleo nearly killed him. Normally someone would be mad, but AFO was happy to think there was someone like her on this planet with enough strength to put me down. Fortunately, it seems like her body was deteriorating long before our fight. Master, there is also the matter of the boy. Shigaraki said. According to our spy, he has left Ua and is now on a crusade to find you. Let him try. AFO said, as he turned his chair around. He will only find death, and some familiar faces. The entire passageway was lined with the corpses of the Amazons, at least those who passed the first trials to become Nomus. And what of our other problem? The woman? She still hasn't been located. Fortunately, it seems that she hasn't made it back to Ua yet. Explained Shigaraki. AFO smiled. Good, good. Proceed as normal. My body will heal soon enough, and once it does we'll move to the next phase. To be continued. I hope you enjoyed this story. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.